Today, we're going to cover, AGOA within the context of US-African trade. What does that look like? What opportunities does it unlock for you? What are the benefits? And then we talk about AGOA trade roles. We always say that in international trade, there are roles that has to be played by different stakeholders. What are those roles? What role are you playing and what roles are other people playing? And how do you learn how to engage with those people? When you're entering a market, we also want to talk about understanding the consumer market. What do they expect from you? Right? Is it a B2B or is it a B2C or is it a B2G? Who are your customers? Who is going to absorb these products from you? Or how do you distribute those products in new markets? How do you structure your pricing strategy, right? Pricing, believe it or not, is always a factor in international market. How do you stay competitive when it comes to pricing and quality, right? You always have to know that you have competition in the market. So how do you structure that? Your branding, your marketing strategy, again, this is not just the activity of exporting because a lot of people export. What we are covering today is the business of export, making sure that you have a business that is going to be competitive in the international market. We're going to talk about packaging, labeling, barcoding, depending on the market and how you want to distribute those products, the end products. And we will talk about how you would build your distribution channel, thinking about how to scale. How do you scale if you've been operating in a particular level before and you're now ready to grow and expand? What do you need to think about? Your quality management is always something we also say people need to look at. How do you think about transportation and logistics, warehousing, storage capabilities, and then payments and trade financing? The more you grow your international business, payments and trade financing becomes a major topic. By itself, it's actually a topic that can be unveiled in a 3-hour. Trade financing is huge because you cannot get, if you want to play big and you don't have the financing, it actually cripples how big you can get in the international space. So that's something we want to cover today as well. And then finally, we'll talk about some resources, some additional materials that you can dive into that will help you within the context of AGOA and exporting from Africa into the US market and even serving as an importer in the US. Okay, so that's really what we're covering today. Like I said, it's a lot, so bear with me. Okay, so AGOA has been on the books, since 2000. Unfortunately, we're finding that so many people are still yet to understand what it is and how to use it. There are people that don't know what it is, and then we have people that know what it is, but don't know how. Today, we're going to cover the how, right? So this is a trade agreement and a trade policy that allows you to import free of duty, meaning zero tariff, and without quota, meaning as much of those commodities from sub-Saharan African countries in good standing, because this is being monitored by the US government every year. So it was first established and signed into law in 2000. It's a bipartisan law, and it has gone through a lot of expansion. Under President Bush, it was expanded. Under President Obama, it was extended to expire now in 2025. The objective of AGOA is to expand US trade and investment with sub-Saharan African country and to stimulate economic growth for both regions, right? So you have, US companies that need commodities, that need products, that need finished products. You have consumer base here that desires to import products from the African continent. You also have, African exporters like, Mr. Lasumbo, our member here, already shared, that absolutely is craving and desiring to build closer relationship with the US market. So AGOA is supposed to be a facilitator of such engagement, right? And under AGOA, about 6,000 products are eligible. There's also what we call the AGOA eligible countries because it's being monitored Some countries, they lose that benefit if they don't align with some US rules. But again, it's still quite substantial, the number of countries that's still AGOA eligible. So this is a policy. One of the things, there's another class I teach that is called Trade and Investment Facilitation. One of the things I try to explain to people is that policy supports trade, particularly internationally. So it becomes very important to understand what policies would help you accomplish and achieve your business goals. Another example of a policy that is so important is the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, right? That's a new policy that allows you to access your regional market. So I always try to tell business people, you can't run away from policy, because when you start crossing the border, you have to understand the policies that allows you to do it, because all the paperwork and the documentation has to align to those policies. Because right now, if you're in the US and you import and you don't mention AGOA, you're going to pay tariff. Okay, so the information is power. If you're in the US and you're importing things that are eligible for AGOA, but at the port of entry, if you don't mention AGOA, if you don't provide the right documentation, you are going to pay. So lack of knowledge is expensive, right? So people are actually paying today tariff that they should not pay because they are not aware. And that's one of the power of policies, that policies unlock opportunities for the business communities that really value knowledge. So what are the benefits? Just tangible benefits, right, of AGOA? Here is what's real. What's going on is that when you think about price competitiveness, there's a clear understanding that you know China supplies a lot to the US market. Africa desires to supply, but you cannot price compete. If I'm a buyer here in the US and I'm looking at the same product and you're telling me Africa can produce it, China can produce it, you can be clear that I'll be looking at price. What's the landing cost? Why should I go to Africa? And AGOA is a way of helping Africans be better competitive, to say, if it's coming from China, you can be rest assured they're paying tariff. It could be 15, whatever percent on those products. But if we waive the tariff for the African exporters, that helps them, right? To say, what you're bringing it in here, the US government is not going to tax you, right? So it's more of helping Africans to become more competitive, knowing that they have a uphill battle, in terms of market penetration, market access, and the capacity to do it at scale. So that's one of the reasons AGOA is a game changer for Africa, is that, you may not be able to price compete with volume, but at least this is an additional benefit, a waiver, a tax waiver in a way that the US government is providing for African exporter. From a fair trade standpoint, we also know that a lot of third parties come into the African market to do the exporting, and it creates a lot of duplication or complexity in the supply chain because there's no direct channel. One of the things is, if you can provide traceability in the supply chain and say, okay, Mrs. Olasumbo, who is a member of ours, is the one at the grassroots actually producing shea butter, and the US can go directly to her, the price and the reward, she would make more money if there are no middle players, you know because today there's a lot of middle players, and they have their role. One of the things I tell people is that the work they do, somebody has to do it. So if the African exporters want to penetrate the US market, they have to take the responsibility of refining those products and making it market eligible. That way they can earn more revenue from the value, the additional value they are creating. And at the end of the day, we can streamline the supply chain, because in today's world, let's just give cashew. Cashew comes out of, say, Kwara, right? But it comes out of Africa and it goes to a non-African country, even Europe or Southeast Asia. The processing happens there, and then it comes to the US market. Guess what happens? The Africans get the least amount of revenue in that process, right? Because of the complexity, the traveling, the cost of value addition is higher. But if we can bring more African exporters into directly, you can be rest assured that the revenue that the Africans generate will be higher as well. So we're going to reduce logistics costs over time to buyers, meaning the cost of the overall transactions is lower because you are working directly with the source in Africa, not third-party players. The supply chain complexity, like I said, will be reduced because you have to take things from Africa, take it to Southeast Asia, look at the transportation, the time, and then process it and then bring it back. If you can just, eliminate those complexities, it saves everybody time. Reduce lead time, believe it or not. Not, these are the things we want to tell people. Africa, in a geographical way, is closer to the US than China. So why not, right? But the work ahead of us is real, right? So lead times can actually be shortened in the supply chain by sourcing directly from Africa. You get to create jobs. Mrs. Olasumbo, you just shared when you introduced yourself today, you shared with us the work that you're doing in the grassroots with youth and women empowerment, just by employing them because of the more capacity that you can build, right? The more demand that the world is making for your product, the more capacity you have to build. And when you have to build more capacity, you're going to employ people and you're going to create jobs in your local community. That's what AGOA is about as well. And then rerouting global supply chain, again, to benefit those that are doing the work in the farm. And then reduce poverty. When you create jobs, people can, when you create livelihoods for people through international trade, you elevate poverty. I like to say that, the focus needs to be wealth creation. When you create wealth in a community, poverty is silenced. So let's silence poverty. Okay, good. So AGOA trade roles. Now, I always want people to break this down. When it comes to international trade, you need to understand the various stakeholders that are engaged. You need to know what role are you playing and who are the other people that you need to be in alignment with. So we've broken this down. We have US importers, the role you play as an importer. We have African exporter, the role you play as an exporter. So let's break it down. Let me start with the African exporter because we have both stakeholders, accessing this training. As the exporter on the continent, you are going to be responsible for either manufacturing, or you are playing more of an aggregator role. So you are sourcing and aggregating because you have a lot of small older farmers, right? On the continent, you don't really have the mainstream, big company, right? Not yet, but we're getting there. There are some in East Africa, but predominantly in West Africa, we have a lot of small older farmers. So we do need aggregators. Today, a lot of the aggregators are non-African. I see in the future where more Africans play this role because it's capital intensive, extremely capital intensive to be the aggregator and the sourcing company, right? So you can be the manufacturer. If it's a finished product, you can be the source, and you can be both actually, where you're sourcing raw commodities from your local community, from small older farmers. You're sourcing those raw commodities into your own manufacturing facility. You're producing a product and then you're exporting those products. Then you're also the person who sells the product. You're typically the one who packages it. Now, there's another space where the packaging branding could be flipped into the US importer's responsibility. It depends if you're doing private brands or the US just want to source the raw commodities like shea butter and then repackage it in the US. That role can shift. But just generally speaking, if you're doing the packaging and branding on the continent, you get to create more jobs and you get to create more there's labor, it's quite labor intensive for packaging and branding, right? So it's just a role that can be flipped. I've seen it both ways where the exporter does it before or the importer, depending on if this is an export of a raw commodity or a finished good. Quality checks. Before you put those products on the ship or on the plane. Quality, because it becomes quite challenging. If you don't do the quality on ground, the goods could be rejected. It could be rejected by customs. It could also be rejected by your buyer based on some of the payment terms. The buyer could deduct from you if it gets here and it's bad quality. Instead of them sending back to you, they'll be like, okay, I'm not going to pay you the full, right? So making sure you put in mechanisms do double check and document the results of your quality check and then pass it on to your importer, that's always, always beneficial. There's always also like FDA certification. There are so many other things bucketed under quality, right? Making sure it meets the requirement, USDA, all of those things, depending on the product you are exporting. You're also going to be responsible for completing export documentation per the requirements of your local market. So if you're in Ghana, operating a business in Ghana is step one, but you also have to have export certificates from your export agencies, which is really your government, right? So it is the responsibility of the exporter to do that. Now, I've seen situations where the US importer, in a way, is also trying to play the role of the exporter, not realizing that if you're not a registered entity in most of those local markets, you have to have certification to be able to be allowed to export from most countries, right? Particularly African countries. So just these are the things I want you to think about ahead of time. Export documentation, what are the requirements in that country, whether it's Congo, Nigeria, Ghana. There's always a government agency under the Ministry of Trade, right? I mean, Nigeria is Export Promotion Council. There are different entities, right, that facilitates your ability to export all the documentation. The other thing as well is usually you have to worry about storage based on if you're going to aggregate. There could be a delay between when that product is being aggregated and when it's going to get on the ship. Usually that time frame, it needs to be stored in a facility, and who is responsible for that storage, right? The African exporter most times. Now let's move to the importer side. Like I said, please take notes of your questions. I know that everything we touch about, it will be raising questions in your mind. Just take note of it, and then when I'm done with this first phase, we will get to the Q&A section. Okay, if you're in the US and you want to play the role of the importer, you can be the off-taker. You hear that phrase used a lot. You can be the buyer, right? But realize you're also responsible for the distribution, right? And there are different types of agreements you could structure, right? That determines the framework, your business framework, whether you're an agent, a distributor, or a representative, or there's just different legal structures you could put in place as the importer. You have responsibility for clearing customs, right? So one of the things that happens is the exporter on the African side is ready to export, but if they don't have a local partner in the US, you can't import. The US requires that the document has to be signed. The person responsible for receiving those products has to be an individual here or a registered company, because they actually keep records. You have to keep the records for, I think, maybe 2-3 years. I'm not sure exactly how many years, but there's a legal requirement to keep all customs documents, because if anything is traced back to that product, they want to be able to trace it back to who brought it into the US. So there's a lot of traceability. And because of that, the importer role has to be legally, must be legal, must somebody that is legal in the US or an entity that has a legal structure in the US. So completing the import documentation. A lot of times, even the importer would likely have to work with an import agent. Why is that? What's going on is that the US government border patrol, their system is quite complex, and they often believe that a regular person may not be able to navigate that legal process. So an import agent is somebody skilled that already has gone through training for the paper, gone through training on how to work with the US government. Most big companies importing things already have maybe their own internal agents that can do this, that have the right training and the right capacity. You actually have to be trained. And most of the time, there's a lot of legal language most of the times people who play that import agent, they have a legal background. In order for you to work with an import agent, you give them power of attorney, and on your behalf, they will engage directly with the US government to clear customs. That's the only role they play, really, just to complete the import clearance and all of those things. Now, if you have the skills, but most of the time, the US government, they don't want, because this has to do with taxes. It's just like employing somebody to file your taxes for you. Like, if you know what you're doing, you can file it yourself, but the likelihood of filing it the right way, it's the same thing. It's that the agents have the legal understanding in terms of how managing the complexity of the US government. So it's a lot of times people want to bypass them. Like, yeah, you can bypass to your own detriment, or you can just work with them. I've also found that that I've actually had to educate some import agents because they are not familiar with AGOA. So that, just be aware of that, that most import agents, in fact, I can tell you all 99.999%, they don't know about AGOA. So be prepared to educate them, which is what I have had to do. But once you educate them in terms of your zero tariff eligibility, then they are able to help you clear your goods with 0%, paying zero tax to the government. Now, warehousing. Depending on the quantity you're bringing in, you could store it in your house, but the more you're scaling up, again, remember, what we're talking about is the business side of export. We want people to grow, we want people to expand. When you start bringing in more volume, you have to consider the cost of putting those products in a third party, maybe logistics or warehouse. What does that entail? Because the day it arrives is not the day you can immediately start distributing. There's always this lag time. And I try to tell people, factor the cost of warehouse, factor the cost of shipping it to the end customers, right? Because you also have responsibility for marketing and then distributing and selling this product. Now, there's also one opportunity, right, where if you were to use e-commerce in a way could break down some barriers. This is the traditional method. E-commerce could break some interesting barriers where exporters out of Africa could start putting up digital platforms where importers in the US can start engaging with them. Now, in the back end, you still get to ship, but then the shipping, that's when you start introducing shipping like DHL, the DHLs of the world and all of those things. So it breaks down the traditional method. Like this framework is really true when you are going volume, but I also wanted to just bring out that e-commerce in a way starts introducing speed and direct to customer opportunities that breaks down cross-border engagement. And that's when you start using DHL to ship. And some of our members, they've used that as well. Maybe you manufacture maybe apparel and you just want to get it in here. There are things you can do that breaks down. But again, this is the volume. When you're going big time into importing products from Africa or exporting volume products from Africa, you have to consider this. Okay? Yes, we're going deeper now. Target market insights. You have to know your customers. You have to know them. Now, you need to understand your product. Is it a B2C or a B2B? What I mean by that is if it's B2C, you are bringing it in a final form that it will be consumed by the customers. So, like products that is ready for the shelf. Sometimes you are bringing in products that will be consumed by the manufacturer, meaning there's still more value addition that has to happen in the US. If you're the exporter from Africa, you may also have a combination of this. You may have, like Mr. Lasumbo, you may have some shea butter that is already packaged that you want to distribute end consumers. You may also have bulk shea butter that you want to sell to the cosmetic industry or the pharmaceutical, right? That would use it in their own production line. Knowing who those people are is going to help you to know how to find them in your marketing strategy, because how those people show up is different. If you're selling to direct to customers, how you do it is different. If you're selling to businesses, you have to look for the buyers within those companies, right? So the buyer could be a customer consuming your product, or the buyer could be buying on behalf of their company. They're buying your commodity. So you need to know this. If you're the importer distributing in the US, you also need to be aware that what you're bringing in, you may want to put it on an Amazon or your own website or in your own store, right? Or you may want to sell it to in bulk. You may want to resell it to a local manufacturer in your city or in your state. Those are opportunities that abound, but knowing how to find them, knowing who you want to serve, would also help you in knowing how to find them. You have to know what they need, right? That's where customer insights understand. It's not just a matter of bringing anything in. You might bring things in and people say, the smell, it's the fragrance, it's not what we need. You may be stuck with a product. So it's better to do this market research ahead of time. What do the US consumers want? How do they want to feel? What's the texture? What's the fragrance? How do you design? If it's apparel, what's the look and feel? How do they want to feel? Because again, you need to know what those customers are looking for. Do they want organic? Do they want, what style, if it's in fashion, right? Knowing what the US consumer wants would help you sell more to them. For success, the easiest thing to do is to produce or source what people already need. Sometimes, people say, oh, I want to sell Gary. I'm like, okay, you realize that only a certain type of people, and we'll cover more of that again in today's masterclass workshop, right? Is that sometimes people say, I want to sell this. Yes, you can sell it, but you're going to do more work in marketing because you're trying to sell something people have never experienced before. So you have to market it in a way that they will buy from you. But the easiest thing to do, and this is what China did. China did not try to, at the beginning, impose itself or its product on the US consumer market. No, they first tried to understand what are people buying and selling. So for example, pen. Everybody's using a pen. We will manufacture that pen for you, right? So think about what people are already buying and then do a substitution to say, if people are already buying apparel, if people are already buying shoes, then we can make it for them in Africa. That's the mindset. It's the easier way to go into a new market versus bringing something that the market is not even aware of. They'll be like, what's that? You're going to have to spend so much more money in marketing and telling the story of that product. And it's not impossible, but I'm just giving you a strategy that might help you win. You always want to sell to them at the right price, right? We know what that is like. As business people, there's always the right price. And for you to find the right price, you have to test. There's no magic number. The market tells you what it's ready to bear, right? The market is like the law of demand and supply. Higher demand. If there's a high demand for a product, what happens? Basic economics, people. When there's a high demand for a product, you can be more flexible in your price. When there's a low demand for a product, you cannot force, you cannot price compete. So it's the law of demand and supply of you being aware of, it's just a good example is coming out of COVID. Within this framework, people are more price sensitive. There's price sensitivity in the marketplace, things that people will just pay and they will not think about before. Now everybody's looking at their subscription, like I need to cut that, right? So there's price sensitivity and you need to be aware of that. So there's a right price, but you have to test it. And don't be afraid to test. You put a price, you sell it, you try to market it. If it doesn't buy, pull it back, design something else, put it out there. It might take you several attempts to find the right price. Okay, when you find the right price, you can then streamline your operations and say, how can I lower my expenses? How can I create more volume? And those are the strategic mindset that I'm bringing people to be aware that there's a business side to exporting. It's not just the activity of exporting, but these are the things that help you to compete in the market. Okay, I'm looking at time and I'm trying to move faster so that we can get to Q&A. Now, this slide is helping people understand how to penetrate the US market. I've divided, particularly when it comes to African products, I've divided the US market for African products into 3 segments. Segment 1, and this triangle also represents the size of those segments. Okay? At the very top, that you can use to penetrate the market is what I call first generation Africans, immigrants, Africans, those that are intimately aware of the continent. They're still super connected to the continent. They like the food, the clothing. They still want to associate with the continent. They're the first generation, right? Or the second generation, because it's the first generation and then the children of that their parents still, taught them what it is to be African. They're still very intimately aware. There are about 2 million of those in the US. Those it's easier for you to sell them certain things because they're already craving the food. They are craving, it's like, for example, during winter, they're always looking at their skin and saying, oh, I know back home in Africa, there's a particular oil, moringa, or there's a particular morula oil, or there's shape, they know all those remedies back home. And they're like, oh, how I wish I could get this thing here today. So that group is a natural, it's like a sweet spot for people trying to penetrate the US market. But their size is small relative to the larger US market. But you can market to them. There's a good size. And the way you market to them is to also be aware of their they are missing home, they're missing food, they're missing the experience. And how do you recreate those experiences for them? It's the smoked fish from West Africa, it's the ugali, it's the, those are things that are readily, you can sell it readily to this group of people. The next chunk of market segments is the African Americans, right? They may not know the continent, but they want to experience the continent through products, right? When you think about Black Panther, Afrocentricity is on the rise, the music, the sound. This is a growing demand for African and all things Africa. They want to experience the food, the ugali, the fufu, the shea butter. This is a segment. Now, it's a bigger segment than first gen, second gen Africans, but it's still not the big segment. And there are certain things you can introduce to them. But the way you introduce it to them and the way you market those products to them will have to be different because, again, you have to introduce them because they are not fully connected to the continent, but they want to experience Africa through the clothing, through the products, through the sound, through our food. Right? So be aware of that segment and how you package to penetrate that segment. Now, other Americans. This is the gold. This is where the gold really is. How do you package products that goes mainstream? Because major retailers sit at the intersection of that and African Americans. They don't really create shelf space yet. We're working on it for African. So for you to have a product that will penetrate that will go mainstream, it has to smell a certain way. It has to look a certain way. It has to be designed that non-African Americans, non-Africans can embrace. Examples of those things would be home furnitures, right? Decorations, mugs, cups, things that it's not too much in their head, but they can experience. It's the carving, it's the hearts, it's the crafts that they're like, that's interesting. They want to taste it, they want to explore it. And I know that over time, the more that we expose this group of people to all things African, the more volume they're going to buy from Africa. But we're still at the very stages of this. But if you can package, it's just like the lipstick, my lipstick, right? My lipstick is designed with that in mind. Mainstream Americans, it's made out of shea butter, but it was designed so that mainstream Americans can use it. Because if I did not factor them into play and I produce it a certain way, I might only be able to sell it to first gen, second gen Africans and African Americans, but not mainstream. So, but that's where the volume is. If you want to go mainstream, you always need to think about that this is a demographic that behaves and thinks a certain way. And if you want to sell to them, you have to be ready. Okay. So let me do this. Let me take a break. We're almost going to the top of the hour. Let me take a break because there's still more I want to dive into. But before we dive into, let me take a break. I'll stop sharing. Let's take a break and do more of question, just some reactions on what you've heard so far. Okay, I've stopped sharing. Let's just get some reactions before I race because there's a lot. I know I just dumped a lot out there. Let's take a break and what's coming into your mind so far? I'll call names. Des.
Good morning again. So what comes to my mind so far is just being able to take advantage of being in the States and having the leverage to basically provide my services or help to make business easier. I know there's a market. I think getting ahead of the curve will likely allow. Well, it would be like adopting this form of business and magnifying it. I think it's just not well known, so people aren't practicing it. So
Mm,
the more we can kind of try to be activists, acting agents to do what's being talked about today, more people will likely take advantage of it because people don't know. So that's these are the things that come to mind. And
mm.
I'm first generation, right? So that's why I read the top of the the pyramid.
So you do represent, so you will buy African, correct?
Correct. If I even have a choice, when I think about being a consumer, I have Liberian soap in my bathroom right now. So that feels amazing. That's the first time, I would think how impactful this can be, just to your daily product. So
That's it. And one thing I tell people is that, just buy African. Just that's the if you buy more, like our other member, Miss Olasumbo, she's happier. She will employ more people. Just buy. So that's a good.
Yes, sir.
Yes, exactly. So
Yes, sir.
Miss Olasumbo, this first segment I just shared, like what did it raise anything for you, ma'am?
Yes, traced some things because looking at the three segments, I am just looking at the three segments. I'm like, okay, for these three segments, it is the retail share. You mentioned the B2B and the B2C.
Yes.
So for this B2B, for this B2B, my question is before I answer your question, my question is like, okay, this we have a combination of the two because we have the bulk share and the retail share. Now, this bulk share, we know, okay, let's go for the cosmetic industry since we already know that they are the ones that are using it. How do we find this cosmetic industry? That's number one question.
Okay.
How do we find them? So, but then the second question is for the business to customer. Then that is where these three segments now come in.
Yes.
Is there a way that we can design, because our products now, you've seen the retail packaging, I don't know if it will suit when you mentioned your lipstick, that you had the third segments in mind,
Yes.
even though you use shea butter, but then you had them in mind and it's selling well.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to have this third segment in mind, and the I want to target the B2C, of course, it's going to be on the shelf. How do I design this retail share to meet up their own taste?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the labeling that we need to
It's a
improve on,
pack.
or the
Yes.
packaging?
It it's
Mhm.
both. So the reason I did
Okay.
that graph, the reason I showed you that
In
graph and
fact,
that
very
segment,
explanatory.
okay, it helped, right? So
Yes, it's helped.
yeah, because a lot of times people say I want to enter the market. I'm asking them who are you targeting? And you have to know,
Targeting.
is this product going to be is there a market fit, and which segment of the market will even consider buying that product?
Yes, that
That's
is
why
it.
people say, okay, I want to export Gary. Please, who is going to buy the Gary? That segment I told
Gary.
you. It's the first generation, second generation. That's why that is so important. So yes, that's why I had to share that, is that you're going after, it's okay. You can actually build a strong business serving just the top of the house. That's okay. But you just know that you are marketing to first gen, second gen Africans because they are craving those products. We have people that do smoked fish. And I told them, smoked fish is a premium for me. Like, who doesn't want to cook smoked fish?
Of course, yeah, that's true.
So you can sell it at a premium to the top of that triangle. It's actually a premium. If you tell me that my soup can be as delicious as the soup you are cooking for, you know when you go to the African local market and you are like, you can't do that here. So it's a premium.
Okay.
People are willing to import those things because they are craving it. So you can sell and get, so you can actually, so I'm trying to explain that it's not that you cannot build a business around that upper triangle. I'm just creating awareness. I'm just saying, know that this is the strategy you're applying, that this is the group of people you're going after. And if you know the group of people you're going after, the language you use in your marketing, where you go and find them, because it's coming to your question, where do you find them? Because if you know you're looking for, yes, if you are looking for, let me give you an example. If you're looking for fellow Nigerians to buy from you, it's so easy. You go to the associations, you go to the consulates, you tell them and introduce them. We can do that for you. I can send, we have them. They will just send it to New York people, right? Those are some of the marketing strategies. That's why I'm saying the business of export. We can employ those marketing strategies for you to say, okay, when you're ready, we introduce you to the consulate, we introduce you to Nigerian associations in America, we do, so there will be some strategies the way you introduce, but you know that you're going to the top of the house. If you want to market to that next group, because the other thing I want to explain is you don't need to skip step. You can actually learn. When you go to that top of the house, they will be more lenient with you because they know you. They will be more understanding. The base of the house, they are not understanding. The consumer in that space, they are very sophisticated. They are very sophisticated because they have options. But if it's easier in a way. So look at what I just shared. I'm not saying limit yourself. I'm just saying, think about the strategy you're building. You can start with that top of the house, penetrate them, get them to know you, and then build your next phase marketing to go after African Americans, get them to know you, and then build another strategy to go mainstream. You don't have to jump into mainstream if you're not ready to, okay? So that's the first thing to just consider. Now, how to find those B2B? They have buyer conferences where you get exhibition. A lot of it is now virtual. We also have buyer networks. We can pitch there. But before you go into that space, remember what I said, you have to be ready, which is part of why this training, right, is helping you understand how they think, so that when you get in front of them, you can negotiate better, and you can pitch better, and you can answer their questions quickly because you know how they think. Right. And here in Chicago, there's a lot of cosmetics is big here in Chicago because of Walgreens is here. Aldi is here. There are a lot of retail. So there are buyers in this community. But again, they have conferences, they have pitch. Ulta Beauty, their headquarters is here. So even in this Chicago, there's a lot of those people. But again, before you engage with them, there's a particular framework that they go by. But it's something that we can now start helping you to put in front of them. And a lot of them even see the work that we do. they are like, that's my background, a lot of buyers, but it's like the volume, the quality, everything that they are looking for, right? We have to be ready to engage with those people. So I hope that helped.
Yes,
yes. And then the story, the base of the pyramid, they want to hear your story. Your story is also something that helps them buy. Like the top of the house, the top of the pyramid, they already know your story.
Story,
They
of
already know
course.
you, right? The middle, they still like to hear their story. In fact, your story is part of their history. So that's how you connect to the African Americans. It's like they're trying to understand more about Africa. So you educate them. And then the base of that pyramid, they want to hear your empowerment story. And you have that story, but it has to be packaged.
Story.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
things you also could do. Do you have your website?
Yes, I have my website.
So your website
But we
is,
want to upgrade it.
yes. So maybe you can send that to me. I can maybe
Okay.
give you some
Okay.
feedback. Your website
Feedback.
has to
Okay.
be on point. On point.
Okay.
Your website can sell things for you, right? Because on
Okay.
that
Okay.
website, you have a strategy where you have a form, a request form. So if we can get the
Okay.
website and use it to put it in our newsletter, send it out to people, when people come on that website, you have a form that they can submit requests. The
Okay.
other thing we can also do for you is your story, hosting it in our community and telling people and capturing. So it's almost like, are you familiar with lead generation?
Lead generation.
So
No, not really.
it's a marketing principle. It's a marketing principle where you're attracting people to yourself, and then you're looking at whether they're a potential buyer for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those are some of that's why I said there's a business of exports, right? Just having a product, you still have to market it, and how you market it, how you penetrate people, the community. It's all about strategy. So the lead generation is, you want buyers. It can be they're buyers for the industry. You want to attract them, and then you want end consumers for your product. And your website, honestly, like after you finish the packaging you were working on, I know I gave you some feedback. I think the website is the
Yes.
next thing you need to work on.
To work on.
Yeah,
Okay.
because easily we could put that website in our newsletter and do some work for you, and immediately people start seeing it. But that website has to tell your story, it has to tell your pricing, it has to tell your distribution programs, how you want to work with
Okay.
people. When you put it on that website, people read it, and they contact you. Okay, so I think
Okay.
websites
Okay. Thank you.
will be the next. I think it's so important to do. It's so important.
Okay. It's
Fantastic.
important. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, awesome. Miss Gabrielle, any thoughts or questions or anything coming to your mind? I know you said you're okay. If not,
Yeah, we can keep going. I'm good.
okay, no questions. Anything popping? No? Okay.
Not now. Yeah.
Okay, good. So I'm going to go back to, or does anybody need a break? I know. Let me take
No, no,
my,
no. Please, I want to ask something.
Mhm,
Can I ask a question?
mhm.
Okay. For the bulk share, I know the retail share. Some shops may not really require that. Maybe you have US FDA certificates or so. But for the bulk share, do you think these cosmetic companies you mentioned, in fact, let's start with Chicago, the one you are familiar with, do they request for this US FDA certificates or any other certification?
A lot of the buyers do, and the reason is because when they package, like they're going to use your shea in, say, a skincare,
Okay.
and then when they are selling it to that customer, they will put on that package, right? What they try to do on
Okay.
that package is they want to be able to tell a story and say, oh, this is sustainable sourced, organic, right? But they are not allowed to put that label if their supply chain did not abide by the principles. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So that's what, because it's a marketing play, because they believe now that, the US consumers, they really like, they want all this organic, they are more sensitive. You remember the base of the pyramid, right? They are more
Yes.
sophisticated, like, Oh, organic, I don't use that, right? Oh, they are now more sensitive to reading the label. So when a manufacturer is sourcing products from around the world, they want to be able to say we sourced it, from, this region of the world. It was sustainably sourced. It's organic. It's FDA certified. And then there are also some facilities that are actually FDA certified facilities. They've gone through their own certification, because anything coming out of that facility, they want to put it on their label that they are certified. So that's what is driving that requirement. Is not just, it's not really about you, is the promise they are making to their customers, their final customers. What they want to put on their own label is what is making them look at their supply chain and the places they are sourcing from. That's what is driving them to drive you to say, do you have a certificate? Because if you don't have a certificate, we cannot use it and then tell people it is organic, right? So that's what drives it. And the other thing is that it becomes a premium for them. They make more money by having those certifications. They can raise their prices. That's so it's a business decision, and it's a business strategy. So they will always say, okay, we want to make more money, we want to be in the premium market, and the premium market is organic, the premium market is kosher, the premium market looks like this. So because of that, we're going to put extra pressure on the people we're buying from, so that we can make that more money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
That's
you.
so, but not you're right, not everybody. Like if you were asking this question 5-10 years ago, you are going to find more people that is not even requiring it. But the world has shifted.
Right.
Yeah, the world has
Shifted, of
shifted
course.
towards sustainability, organic, and so more and more people want that. It's almost like it's now almost required. So you are just better served if you get that. And Ghana has a lot of it, which is another thing as well. Miss Rachel, welcome. I've been trying to reach you. We're already 1 hour in. Do you want to say hello to everybody?
Hi, everyone. It took me a minute. I'm sorry about that, but I'm
Oh,
here. Here.
okay. Do you want to show your video? Let's see your face. And then, because what happened is I already shared, I already did a presentation, and then I stopped, and we're now in Q&A. So we're taking just a Q&A break. So we are discussing what we just covered. So yeah, do you want to show your video and just introduce? We went through introductions as well. So please introduce yourself.
I think that I am not able to join video at this
Oh,
moment.
okay, that's good. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so yeah, so basically we've covered a lot, and this is being recorded. So probably you might want to watch the replay of that first
Sure.
segment. But we covered what the opportunities are, AGOA, explaining what it is, what benefits it offers. Then we explain the different roles people have to play, like AGOA role, as if you're an exporter or an importer, the roles and the responsibilities you have on both sides.
Right.
And then also going deeper dive in terms of knowing your customer, sharing customer insights around who you're marketing to in the US, the size of that segment, like Africans or African Americans or mainstream, and how you strategically position to that. So just introduce, so you are here in the US, so you are going to play the role of an importer, correct?
Correct. Yes. I am based here in New Jersey, and I look forward to the whole import um, bargain. So this is good. I definitely will watch it again.
Yes, yes.
I will.
Because we talked about, what roles you'll be, the importer, the import documentation, all of distribution, all of those things. And what other question do I have for you? Have you narrowed down what commodities? Because I'm about to go to the second half now, which I'm going to share some commodities that are opportunity spaces. But have you narrowed down what you want to import and where you want to import from?
Yes, definitely the shea butter.
Ooh, we have a shea butter, right? We have a member, Salasumbo, right now.
I see.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, so shea butter, and definitely from Ghana, because I already have someone in Ghana who's actually family, and this is what she does in Ghana. So the idea is to bring it here and sell it here, hopefully Walmart or, Target or some of these, places where we can get it out there and sell it.
Okay. So what I also shared at the beginning is that this training, this masterclass, call it workshop, masterclass, what it's really helping people build a business, not just be in the activity of import export. A lot of people are in the activity, in the motion. They are buying, they are selling, but they are not building, putting structure in place. That's what this is about. So one thing I will just challenge you on, and because I can challenge you here because I'm committed to your growth, is that when you start looking at the numbers and putting the structures in place, and if you want to scale up, you may find that you may not be able to build a business around just your family. Just something to watch out for, because I could hear in your voice your commitment to this particular person in Ghana. Like the motivation for starting this could be that person. But if you want to win, and if you want to grow, and if you want to expand, you may be moving faster than this individual. And if that happens, what are you going to do? Here's why. If you build strictly around this person alone, you've already limited how far you can go, because your business is banking on that person. It's if you are doing a business SWOT, like strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats, that is a huge risk for your business, for you to build a business around an individual. Okay.
Right.
So
Right.
so I'm the person that will call you out on that. Like, I'm more into business strategy, right? No sentiments. Like when you're crunching your calculator and you are doing your numbers, right? You need to understand what risk, things that can derail your business, things that can impact you, and you need to mitigate that.
I see.
So I could hear, I mean, it's good to have people on ground that can run from you, but you really would need to be clear. And this is the best time, okay? Because family do things like you need people that you are their boss. Right?
Yeah.
You see, do you understand? And thank you for allowing me to do this, because I'm already calling you out, because I can see some things down the line that may frustrate
the
when you
process.
build. Yeah, that may it may not frustrate the activity of importing, but it may frustrate your ability to build a competitive business.
I see. Right, to put it on the global market.
Right, because the way the buyers, you need reliability. And one of the ways people drive reliability is with your money in your pocket. If you don't do ABC, I'm not paying you. Like if you're having a business, that's what buyers do. If I'm bringing my money into a market, okay, let me play this out. And this is a good thing we need to document as well, because many people need to hear this. As a buyer, if you position yourself as the buyer, and this is what also people on the continent needs to know, okay? So they prepare. As a buyer, if you go to a market and you want to buy fish, and there are 3 people selling fish, Ghana, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire. Okay? You have your money in your pocket. You go to the first person with their fish, and their fish stinks. What do?
Definitely not choosing that option.
You move.
Yes.
If you go to the next country and they don't treat you well, what do?
Move.
Okay. And the third person, if they then do treat you well, you pay them. But if that person that the fish is stinking is your family, what do?
Ooh, that's the challenge right there, because it's family and there are other politics involved at that point. Yeah. Basically, yes. I got the picture.
diversify.
Right.
And you have somebody here that it's a business transaction. If she doesn't do what, if you tell her you need ABC and she doesn't do, you don't have to pay her. And she's not going to be upset with you. She's not family. It's a business transaction.
Yeah.
She'll be more inclined to do everything for you because it's a business transaction.
Correct.
But if it's family, oh, my sister, oh, mommy, I'm tired. Oh, and you're trying to build a business and people are holding you accountable. You have to also, this is also an opportunity to say you have to train if you're going to build a business around them. So I'm not saying don't, I'm just helping you see the business implication. You have to train them and you have to explain to them. You have to take time to explain to them how important this is to you, that you want them to be a backbone for your business and they have to show up and know stories. So if you're not ready to have those serious conversations with them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
I can see that happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these are the things I will not share with anybody on social media because it's a tough conversation, right? And it's that distinction of me being committed to the success of the members versus, just saying hi to people. So because I will be able to call things out and I know you will receive it because it's coming from a genuine place that I want you to win. Like I don't know the person you're talking about. I don't know who they are, but I'm just saying if this is business for you, if you're going to commit capital into this thing, please think of it as a businesswoman and know what the risk factors are and try and mitigate that and make sure you diversify, that you have a lot of options. That you even have a lot of options even in Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. That was, I think, good. I think it was also good for others. So I'm going to get back to sharing my screen now to the other, gonna go into it now. Okay, so we just did how to target US customers, the first gen, second gen, their size, the African Americans and other Americans. Okay, let me click. Wants me to click. Okay, did I go too far? Okay. Now, what are the opportunities? We've done extensive research to be able to call out these 3 segments of opportunities that people need to pursue today. This is not to say there are not other opportunities, but this is Africa. This is where Africa can win, like yesterday. Apparel is huge, massive. And the way you can also win in apparel is not just making any type of apparel, is actually producing Afrocentric products, right? This is a growth space, but you have to design it. Remember, these 2 slides almost go hand in hand. This slide and this slide. If you're doing apparel, the way you design it, you have to put into consideration, is it first gen African Americans or other Americans? Because the things that Africans would wear, the gele, people who know the headgear, the the flamboyant outfits, an African American might not be bold, might not be ready to go all in yet. Or other Americans, white Americans might not be able to do that big stuff, the ones we wear in churches, that big, I still do it, like a big, loud, the things we do, right? If you bring those in, know that again, you're targeting first gen, second gen. If you're targeting African Americans and other Americans, how you design the apparel, maybe swimwear, short shorts, like something cute, something that is a taste of Africa, not just the one that overwhelms. Like we like the multicolored, it's all, you know what I'm talking about. So you need to match this slide with the previous slide as you're designing what those needs to look like. So African fabrics, we know that different, because I've worked across different African countries, and most countries have their indigenous fabrics. Like like in Nigeria, you have tie and dye. In Botswana, they have this exotic blue things. Ghana has kente. Most African countries have indigenous fabrics. How do you bring those fabrics and modernize it? There's an opportunity there. There's jewelries, loungewear, sleepwears, headscarf. Like, this is an area we need to flood this market, like flood it, right? This is a growth space. Another growth space that is, again, the reason we did this focus area is based on research in retail, because sometimes people say, Toyin, what are they demanding in US? Okay, and then when I go to the buyers will say, what is Africa wanting to sell? I'm like, is it the chicken or the egg? So that's why we did this work, because both sides were like, Toyin, we can source anything. What are they demanding? Then buyer will be like, it's not about what we're demanding, it's about what do they have. So this is how we've now closed that gap to say, go after the 3 spaces and you will win. Skincare. This is a picture, this African soap. I actually took that picture myself in a store. I won't say the store, but you can tell the store from the label, okay? Look at the prices. And look at the label. It says African black soap. This has gone to, remember this slide, it's gone to the other Americans. Through the packaging and the quality, it's sitting in a mainstream store. African sells, people. African sells. African sells. But the packaging has to be on point. So you have cocoa butter, shea butter, coconut oil, African black soap, like skincare, hair care. This is a growth space. We've barely scratched the surface. We need to get more market share in this space. And then commodities, coffee, cashew, sesame. Sesame is massive with McDonald's, and sesame is huge. It's consumed like spices, pepper. We have abundance of those. These 3 areas is an immediate area that Africa can be winning like today. You can't go wrong in this space. But remember, match this to this. So when I tell you bring commodities, you need to remember what I said. Ooh, okay, this previous slide, remember, know your customers. Ooh, ask yourself, who would eat the cashew? Is it raw cashew, processed cashew, or packaged cashew? The demand is high in the US. When you know the who, you can then start putting price testing. If it's going to be processed, you need to understand that. Are you selling to first gen, second gen? Are you selling to African Americans, or are you going mainstream to the shelf? This is where the work lies. How? The who and the how and the what. We've just answered that. If you're looking at which growth area, these 3 areas, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong, but you have to have a strategy behind it. Okay? Pricing strategy. I used to manage a project that was called profitability analysis for a major, Fortune 50, I believe. Profitability, how profitable you are in this export business. Remember, this training and this masterclass is about building a winning export business. It's not about engaging in export activities. I'm making a distinction. A lot of people are engaging in export-import activities, but they are not building a business. This is about, how do you win? How do you build a business that is sustainable long-term? You have to always think about your price strategy. How do you penetrate the market? These are some of the costs that goes into value addition that I want to call out, that you have to think about, and you have to keep records. Because you can, before you decide, oh, I'm going to sell this for $499, $999, you need to consider what the cost it takes you to even bring it into the market in the first place. There's something we call direct cost. Direct cost is what is actually in the product that the person is buying, what it took you to produce it, the direct cost, the raw commodities, everything that went into it. Your overhead, the labor, right? The people you employed, that it took, your HR, all of those things, your electricity, all the overhead, your rent, everything that it took to create that product. Your packaging, it's a cost to you. One of the things I want to talk about packaging, you need to invest a lot in packaging. Sometimes, sometimes, this is the trick of the trade. Sometimes, don't tell anybody. Sometimes the packaging actually costs more than what is inside. I'm telling you, sometimes the cost of the packaging is more than the cost of what you poured inside the packaging, because packaging sells. Packaging sells. So it's a big investment you must be ready to make. Don't cut corners in packaging, because the packaging is what is going to sell what is inside. If the packaging is not where it needs to be, and you are telling, oh, that product is fantastic, it's the best in the world, people won't. It's what is that aesthetics that get people to even touch it in the first place. So you want more people touching your product, being interested in your product. So packaging is how you attract people. Now, after you attract them, if they now test it out and they fall in love with it, they'll come back again. But if your packaging is not on point, you've already lost a lot of opportunity.
I had a question. It's Gabrielle.
Okay, so give me a moment to finish this,
Okay.
and then I'll take another pause, and maybe that's what I'll be doing. I'll pause and then ask.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Okay. Packaging cost, consider that. Shipping and transportation cost. When I say inbound and outbound, what I mean is the cost. You remember we talked about the exporter-importer roles? Okay. For the exporter, there's a lot of shipping transportation costs. Like Mr. Lasumbo would have costs, to take the products from where she is in Oyo State, take it to Lagos. There's a lot of transportation implication there. Then she puts it on the ship, you pay.
Yes,
And then when it gets here, you have to maybe put it in a warehouse or get it to yourself, depending. Like, again, if you are doing volume, it may not be you, it may be a driver of a lorry, of a truck. You need to factor all of that out. Sales and marketing, there's costs associated with your social media strategy, getting creatives, getting people to take pictures, creative your videos, constantly posting and all of those things to get lead, there's cost associated with that. And then miscellaneous, like everything else. A lot of people are engaged in activities of exporting, but not in the business. If you're in the business, you need to track all of these things. And this is what you would use to calculate, right? Your sales plan. What volume can I push? Because when your overhead is already this is another business topic, right? That is so deep, profitability analysis and all of those things. If you already know that your overhead is flat all year, to make more money, you want to push more activities to do, because you're paying them salary anyway. So how can you optimize their productivity is another business strategy. So volume is going to help you to optimize your overhead. You're paying rent anyway, you're paying people anyway, give them more work to do. That way you get more demand, right? Capacity building. So those are some of the strategies, and these things can be optimized. When I talk about business optimization, you can optimize all of these things over time. Also consider your competitor pricing, because sometimes even if you do all that work, if you look at the market and your competitor is pricing it as a particular price, you need to be aware, you need to be informed, because you are competing in the same process. Also consider markup-based volume. So if you're going to be working with a distributor, there's something you have to do. You have to plan your price. You have to lower your price so that your distributor can make money. A lot of times people don't factor that in, that the buyer coming to you, that buyer going to resell it? If that buyer is going to resell it, you need to make sure that you bake it in and you give them a reason to buy volume from you, so that they will also make money. So that that markup is split. So as the manufacturer, you're not the only one making money. You bake in some, and that's when they talk about MSRP, manufactured recommended pricing, because the distributor is going to mark it up by a given percentage that covers their own cost, and they make money from that transaction. So that's something to always watch out. One of my clients, we're actually helping them put some of those things together, because they're looking for distributors, right? If the distributor is not going to make money, why should they engage with you? Okay, so again, I'll stop there and then take questions, so that way I'm not running too fast. So let me stop sharing. I'm Gabrielle. Please, your question.
Yeah, my question was in terms of packaging. So do you suggest that the packaging strategy focuses on, like, okay, so are people doing packaging locally to export, or do they do it when the product gets over there and they have an agency who takes care of it? Because if you're trying to grow crops and then you're trying to sell it overseas, like, it's a lot to have to think about all the elements that you just highlighted, like packaging, communication, marketing, and so forth. So is the idea to hire a marketing agency that will take care of all of that? Or when you're starting out, should you try to do certain things on your own? Because if you have to do all of those things, then it's at a bigger scale. Then you should have the funds to do it. And if you have to save up to be able to do all that, so like, how do you get started if you don't have all that investment to make?
Okay, good. This is a very, very good question. I'm going to give you tips and tricks. Okay. Your first question along the line of packaging. There's a supply chain to packaging and there's a strategy to it. If you're distributing a product in Africa today, you're more likely to be importing your packaging from China. Mr. Lasumbo, is that true? Mr. Lasumbo, where is your packaging coming from? I want to make this practical. Sorry?
Yes,
It's from
buy
China,
from
right?
the importers, different from China.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So the packaging is, most packaging is coming from China, even US. But here's the difference. Here's what is key. The packaging that is being imported today into Africa is a lower grade, lower offer. It's that same China, but they are if that product is to be distributed in the local African market, the importers bringing it in, they are bringing the cheaper alternative packaging into the African market, because it's like they feel, oh, the African consumers they've not really, What is going up is that in the US, the same is true, but the type of packaging that you bring in from China is the higher grade. In fact, I have boxes of packaging from China, but the grade is US standard, like real, like, let me give, I want to be very practical, right? Right? Like, we haven't put label on this. So this is a test, right? So this is coming from China, right? Even the label, my label is coming from China. It was designed in the US, but produced in China. So the reason I'm saying that is you have option in the business of international trade. You have to look at your numbers. You have to understand the landscape. So I'm telling you, packaging comes from China. But today, people bringing things directly into Africa, they are buying the cheaper version. So that's why when you look at those packaging, they're like this, because they've already understood that the African consumer base is looking for less, right, cost. They're more price sensitive. So they would rather go for what is inside it. They're not really like packaging. But on the flip side, the US consumer is more sophisticated. Packaging is everything. So the packaging that is brought into the US is the premium. The reason I'm explaining that is you have options. Here are a couple of things you could do. there are two things. The packaging is one, actually three: the packaging, the labeling, and then the labor to put it all together. Remember, packaging, the package, the label, what goes on it, and then the labor, the people that will pour the product, seal it, and put it in boxes. I'm going to okay, this is good. I'm going to create a new slide to explain this thing. Let me, because I always update my training because this question is very good.
And along those lines,
Mhm.
because if you're packaging to sell to African Americans, obviously it's going to be a little different if you're packaging to sell to Africans from the first generation. And so how do you so if you're selling the same product, basically you have to have one clientele so you can adjust the
Oh my
packaging
gosh,
to them, right?
you're like making me, I'm all smiles, because this is how I'm telling people to think. Like putting like this is the real meat of it. So here are a couple of things you can do. Do you package on the continent or do you package here? That's the first question. But there are things you have to consider. Labor cost. The cost of packaging in the US is likely to be higher than the cost of packaging on the continent. Labor. So here are a few strategies you may consider. Because you still want it to look and feel like ready for that segment you just talked about. Here are a couple of things you could do. Okay, this is gold. This is gold. I'm about to drop gold. Okay. You can design the label here in the US. Secure the packaging from China, but send that packaging and the label to Africa, and then get your local partner to use the packaging you picked and the label you designed, and just fulfill the production, the pour. When it comes here, nobody can tell the difference. And then you do quality. Remember, we talked about quality checks. You make sure you put quality checks so that, the label is not skewed, right? You want to make sure that the label, their machine, and there are co-packers right now, or even on the continent, for tea and labels, right? But the two key things is the packaging must be high quality. The label must be on point. And literally, you can get a graphics. You can sit right now with somebody and design a label to your standard, color separation, everything. You can even send that design to China, which I have done. Send the design here. In fact, even one of my people in China, they even helped me to design. Even China would design for you. China will even design for you right now. They can design it, and then you order that labeling. Instead of sending it here to the US, you send it to the person in Africa. They have the label, they have the packaging, the product, they pour it to your standard, they package it. When it comes to the US, nobody can tell. But you make sure you put made in. That's where in your labeling, your made in must be on point, made in Africa, right? That's where the difference is. If you decide to fill it here, the labeling would say produced in the US from globally sourced brand. So my lipstick is produced in the US, but we source commodities from Africa. In the future, there are different things I might do. And so this is a strategic play where you are controlling the packaging, because if you buy packaging in Africa, you're going to be buying the cheaper, because the importers, they want to make so much money. So they're only committing to import cheaper stuff. You have to take responsibility, source the packaging from China, get it into the hands of your people, it's to your stand. But you can also, before you send the final one to Africa, you first engage with China, they send you samples. So it might take you months to decide what. Like for me, as example, like several samples, back and forth, no, yes. Like, I had to explore so many packaging suppliers. They'll send samples. It's so quick. They'll just hear freight to DHL, right? You go online, you say, send me sample, this, you pay for the shipping. You're like, no, yes. You negotiate. And then at the point of this is my standard, then you can buy bulk. So don't just go in buy bulk. So you can go back and forth. There are a lot of fantastic packaging companies in China, but their volume, like 1,000, 10,000 pieces, you can buy volume. But before you buy volume, test it out. So that's a business strategy that I've seen other people bring the raw, they mix it in Africa, they bring the raw, then you package it here. But the cost, remember I talked about cost. I'm like a calculator. I'm like labor 5 hours. If you pay somebody $9 per hour, how many hours would they use to fill blah 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 blah? But if you can get it less, this is the way work around. Yeah, but it's a lot of the business of exporting is all about logistics and optimization, because you might start out, let's say, doing it here in the US. When you streamline that operation, you look at all your costs. When you look at all your costs, year 1, year 2, you do that. Year 3, you want to optimize, and then you shift your supply chain to low. You always want to lower expenses, and then that your profitability is lower. How can you lower expenses? How can you increase revenue? How can you increase sales? And the way to increase revenue is to increase sales. So again, this is the business side of all of these things that I see people doing. There's always optimization of your activities. If you don't optimize it, you're spending so much money and you cannot optimize. So labor is something to always think about. But if you have the labor here in the US and you're able to afford it, that's fine. But there's always that trick. Okay, let's go around again before I continue. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Olasumbo, any thoughts?
Well, I'm still absorbing
the packaging aspect.
Really make sense. Yes, you really make sense, because if we can get the packaging here, and if we can get somebody to design the label to the taste of the segment of the Americans that we want to target, we can now print it here, then put it. Of course, labor is not as expensive as in Nigeria as in US, so you can do it here. By the time we do everything together, it will come out well.
Yeah,
and
nobody would know.
Of course.
That's what the rest of the world is doing. These are the strategic positioning, right?
But do you know the average cost of designing label in US?
So these are all so the costs would be, these are additional costs, but long term you will make it back, because you get to design it once, right? You get to design it once. So the other thing is that not every graphics person can actually design well for retail, because I come from the world of retail. There are actually specific people with the skill set that designs. Like retail requires a particular mindset of graphic artists that designs all these things that we see, right? And that's the space that I come in. But the other thing that would drive the costs would be the back and forth. US always does with labor hours. So some of them will tell you, I will design it, and then I'll give you 2 or 3 iterations, meaning you can come back to me and make changes 2 or 3 times. By the 3rd time, I'm not doing again, or you pay me extra. So those are some of the things. Unlike in Africa, you will see, labor hours is what people run with in the US. But I would think it shouldn't cost you more than a very good graphics person between $300 and $500. Like, it shouldn't cost you that much. Now, I know in Africa that's a lot of money, but you have to consider that this is a label that you can use forever. And the other thing I'll tell you to require when that person designs it, ask for them to give you the vector documents. What that allows is that the vector, like, okay, so when they design most people, when they design, they will give you the JPEG or the output. You can't edit that file. They give you the JPEG or PNG, high resolution
Okay.
PDF.
Sure.
You cannot edit it. But if you ask them to give you the vector file, that vector file, you can then make changes to it by yourself in Nigeria.
Okay.
Yeah. So some people, some graphics people, they eat the way they eat their, the way they make more money is they will never give people the vector file. They will always be giving you the picture. Here's your PDF, but you cannot edit it. But if you ask for the vector graph, you can then even take that and work with a local person, because at that point, you might only be changing the overall design is done. You may just be changing maybe your website or the address, and anybody can type in that, not the overall look and feel.
Look and feel.
You see what I'm
Okay.
saying? Yeah. So those are some of
Okay.
the tricks of by if you don't ask for that vector, you will keep needing them. And you keep asking them questions and you cannot edit it. And for every label change, you'll be paying them money. So it's not just the PDF you want to ask for the raw JPEG. I'm sorry, vector file.
The vector file.
The vector file. And
Okay.
when you
Thank
have that
you.
file, you are all set. I mean, something you can use for the next 3, 4, 5 years. Like, you don't have to pay anybody again. So think of it as a 5-year investment into graphics, right? So I know it's a lot of money, but this is what it takes, is that packaging and label. The moment you can get those two things, even imported brands, you can compete with them in Nigeria. Because what those imported brands have over you is packaging and label.
That's true.
That's the only thing.
That's
It's not
true.
what is inside. Yours is probably more higher
Right.
quality.
High quality.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I really, in fact, I'm loving this Q&A. I'll be adding those things to the trade. It's helping me a lot, because I want to be as practical as possible, because out there people just say, oh, I export, I import. No, these are the real, these are the real things you have to think about as a business person to lower your expense and increase sales. Okay. Before we go on, any other comments? I want to get your reaction. MBA. Are you still there? Okay, maybe not. Should I go on? Should I continue now?
Yes, yes, please do.
Okay, good. Let me share. Okay, again, pricing strategy. This is something constantly you have to optimize and get it right as well. Let me move on to the next. Branding and marketing. A lot of times, right? This by itself it's huge. It's huge. It's massive. To increase the sales, whether to B2B, whether it's B2B or B2C, it's important. You can create the best product and be ready, but if people don't know how to engage with you, if people cannot find you, right, then you're sitting on gold. Marketing is what helps you to be discovered. Also, knowing your brand story, packaging your brand story is something that can attract people to you, to work with you, to buy from you. Ultimately, right, you're doing good with, US Africa trade as real opportunities in the economic. Whether in the US, you're going to employ people, whether in Africa, you're going to employ people. It's a win-win. And making sure you tell that story of who you are, what you're doing is so, so important. How you do it, right? Social media unlocks so much opportunity today. You may have the best product, but no one will buy if they do not know about you. So it's so important to connect with your customers, connect with your buyers. So like I talked about, your website, your social media presence, the graphics, it all has to be on point. Remember the segmentation, right? Let me ask this question. If we go back here, what would your marketing be if you want to market and tell the story to first gen, second gen Africans. Think about that. What would that story be? We are doing great things in Africa. Come and be a part of it. If you want to market to African Americans, right? Just take a moment and think about what that needs to look like. Right? Africa is great. There are great people in Africa. We are producing great things that you can use for your family, skincare that is of high quality, that you can use on your babies, organic. You can tell that story to them. Non-Africans, you can tell the impact story. When you buy from us, you're impacting women at the grassroots. So this slide also drives what you do on your website and on your social media. You have to talk to those segments of people that you want to sell to. How do they think? What are they looking for? What types of pictures do they want to see? How do you engage with them? Because when you do, they will visit your website, they will buy your product. Now, if you're starting small, like we are with our lipsticks, you also have to give people time to become aware of your brand. A lot of times people don't invest in brand building. People don't just buy products because they want to buy products. They are buying the belief they have in those businesses. They are buying into a brand. They buy into a brand first, sometimes before they buy the product. So investing time to build a brand is important, but there's also opportunities to do, contract manufacturing, where somebody else owns a brand, but you help them produce that product. Because the cost of branding and marketing is very, very high. So sometimes in the supply chain, people tend to focus on one or the other. I can be the manufacturer, produce for you, and then you in the US market as the importer can focus on branding and marketing. So those are also, structures that can be put in place. Now, packaging label design, we already discussed it, but let me quickly share some as well. There's something we call retail readiness. For you to have a product on a mainstream shelf, if you want it to go mainstream, retail readiness is very, very intense in the sense of your barcodes, right? Is even if you want to go mainstream, even simply on Amazon, if you want to do Amazon logistics or fulfilled by Amazon, you have to do barcodes that are readable, right? So retail readiness also, for those who say, okay, I want to be on Amazon or I want to be on Walmart or Walgreens, this is heavy. In fact, I always tell people, see it as an aspiration, but always ask yourself, are you ready? Because they require a lot of, there's something we call EDI. They are very systemized. They require sophisticated solutions in your warehouse, scannable barcode. Because of the volume that they have to use, they're not in the business of picking things by hand. So a lot of it is automated. A lot of their systems, you ask to connect with your system. So that's one of the reasons I call people out and say, hey, are you retail ready? Start where you are, start building now. I know if you want to be in that framework, give yourself time to build into it. In fact, a lot of them, they don't work with new time businesses because you don't have what it takes yet, but you can start where you are. You can start on your own website. You can streamline your warehousing. You can streamline all those operations before you say, oh, I want to go here. Because those big brands, retail readiness is intense and it requires capital intensive processes, particularly in the back end. That's what I came from. Your customer experience is something like we talked about the label, your packaging, when people touch your products, how you make them feel, how you serve them, the look and feel. All of these things is what sells product, particularly in sophisticated markets like the US. So this is something that has to be realized, is that if you don't do all this work, you have already limited the number of people that will be interested in what it is you're selling. Because people have options here. the consumer base has options. So if you want to attract their attention, these are the minimum requirements. The look and feel of your products, your customer experience, retail readiness, how you go to market. These are all things you have to optimize. There's really no way around it. It's what you have to invest time in. Okay, let's build your distribution channel. Pretty much, distribution channel is just a framework of how you get your product into the marketplace. We've talked about direct to customers. You can use websites. You can use platforms like Amazon to get a finished product. And this is in particular for those importing products here. You're trying to get it direct to customer. You can do social media. A lot of the social media platforms now are now integrating shopping experiences into their platforms like Instagram, shops, and all of those things. You have Shopify, you can do that. You're getting directly to the consumers. This topic itself, it could be another training that we do for another 2 hours, just building a direct to consumer, but it's quite intensive, or e-commerce by itself. Let's just say e-commerce, right? It's intense in order to do it well in a winning way. Now, B2B could be you're getting a distributor in this market. You can act as a distributor, authorized, like exclusive distributorship to distribute a product in the market, right? You could be a retailer where you have a website and you're putting those products on your website. You could be a manufacturer using that raw commodity. So again, different actors, different roles you can play, just understanding it. There's also a part of working with third-party sales agents. Sometimes we play that where we help you facilitate, and based on whatever we help you facilitate, we get commission. So it's commission-based transaction. A lot of times people don't understand that this is something that drives retail. Like, it's a known function in the retail world, but because people are not exposed to the retail world, they don't understand that you have third-party agents. What they are doing is they're connecting you to buyers. They're helping you to design your pitch decks. They're doing a lot of heavy lifting for you. They're guiding you. They're consulting with you. They're coaching you. And when they help you lock that deal that you cannot get by yourself, you pay them a commission for all the work that they did. Sometimes you pay upfront, like a labor cost upfront, and then in the back end, you get a percentage, 3%, whatever, 2-3% of the overall sales. And that's how people get volume. Because in order to get volume, work with big retailers, these sales agents, they are very skilled in helping you to do your packaging. And this is an area that we are growing. We call it trade facilitation. It's an area we're growing under Nazaro as well, but we realize that we actually have to coach people first before we can use our brand to help them seal those big deals, because we don't want to go to any buyer and say, oh, this person is ready, and they are not ready, and we know they are not ready. So that's why I have been investing time in preparing people and helping to coach people, because I know what buyers want, because I help build those systems. I know what they're looking for. And a lot of times when people come to me, and once I do my own due diligence, I realize that they're not ready for mainstream. So what we now focus on is helping them get ready. But when we help people get ready and we've done our own due diligence and we're ready to present them, then we take on this role as a sales agent to help close that deal for them on their behalf. So this is the business of exports. A lot of people are engaged in export activities, but they are not seeing this through the lens of international trade and the scale of building a scalable business. Okay, I'm looking at time. We've gone 2 hours already. Can you believe that? Have we?
Wow.
Yeah. No. Is my clock? No, we've not.
Yes.
No. Is it 2 hours, or somebody should
It's
tell
2
me?
hours. We started past 3.
So
We started past
we've
3.
gone.
And this is past
Okay,
5.
we've gone.
2 hours.
We've gone 2 hours.
Okay. So give yourself a clap already. We still have a little bit more to go.
Yes, so
Okay, maybe let me take a moment and pause again. I usually let me okay. Let me pause again. Usually when I go this long, I give people a break. 10, 15 minutes break. But I know we've just been scaling. Like we've been going really fast. Let me get it. Do you need a break? Or should we run to the end?
I'm comfortable either way. To go.
Okay, maybe
All
we'll
right.
go. But let me pause and just get some reactions before we go fast again. There's
So what I like about everything so far is just the fact of understanding the distribution space where the packaging and realizing what really needs to happen before packaging comes to the States or either goes to Africa. I think also understanding the competition and price sensitivity. Those are some very nice keywords to really understand with competition and having to stay in business. So those are some really good things. So I'm really interested to hear more. And I know there's a lot to this. So as a veteran as well, I really look forward to seeing how this works out. So
right. And honestly, each of this topic, like in the world that I'm coming from, each of this topic itself, it's something that you have to, there's more to it under it. Like each, the first thing is let's understand this game, right? This is how the game is. It's not enough for people to be engaged in activities. Oh, I buy, I sell. The real competitiveness comes with structuring your business, optimizing your business, your profitability, right? And each of these things, literally each of them, we could go deeper. If I talk about e-commerce, that's like a class on its own. How do you win online? How do you brand? How do you market? That's another deep dive. But at a minimum, this 3-hour course is to awaken people to realizing this what you want to do is going to require heavy lifting. I think that's the minimum. It's just for people to realize even those people that are in this business, you don't find them, they don't have time because running this type of business is daily practice. So that's even part of what I'm trying to call out. And there's maybe you can help me is that there's a seriousness to this thing, but when we see people engage online, maybe on Clubhouse, they're like, "Oh yes, but this is the real stuff behind the scene."
yes, I think most people want to be really involved with doing business in Africa, but don't really have the patience to really understand the full processes. It sounds like a great idea until the idea becomes a reality. And I think one example that you gave with the family was a very harsh reality that I think people aren't most familiar to. Another thing that just come to mind that I wanted to ask you, Toyin, was what's an example of a product that's lower than its packaging? If you can share, but
Skincare,
maybe if
skincare,
okay,
skincare.
any other products though? Any other ones than that one?
So the reason with skincare is that a lot of the luxury brand, the cost, the why it is expensive is what they put into research and development. You see what I'm saying? Like in the world of skincare, marketing is expensive. You have to look at all the models you have to employ. This is the overhead of productivity, of value addition. So this is where what people miss. I'm loving this Q&A session, by the way, because it's getting me to get more things out there that I may not have shared. Creating a product, what it takes to create a product is what ends up driving the value. It's not the product itself. This is the fundamental thing we need people to understand. A lot of times people think it's the product that they are pricing. No. When you buy something in the market, it's not really the direct cost. You remember I broke down direct cost, overhead, shipping, logistic. The cost of bringing this to the market is what they do in their profitability to tell you what they're going to charge you for. It is the people they employ, it's the HR people they employ, it's the models, it's all the things that it takes to run a global business They now say, okay, this is what we are producing. This product must bear that cost. So they do a sales plan. I mean, I know I'm going really technical because I've done this before for manufacturing, right?
This is good, Toyin.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
great.
Okay. And this is the technical, this is the life, this like we used to produce dishwashers. So profitability analysis for dishwashers, right? You're not paying for the just the physical screws and stuff that's the components of the dishwasher. By the way, the dishwasher has more than 800 components inside it that they are sourcing from all over the world. Okay. The direct cost is every component, every screw that is in that product, but the overhead is all the engineers you employed to design that product, all the architects that did that work, the salary you're paying, what's all your everything that it takes for that company to operate. Those dishwasher, when we sell it into the marketplace, the money we make back must be more than what we put in. And that's your sales plan. So what they do at the beginning of, before you go into next year, let's say you're going to 2022, they have a sales plan that they say, how many dishwashers do we need to sell to make the money to run this company? Because again, you're in the business of company, you're in a business. This is not charity. How many dishwashers do we need to sell to pay all the salary? Right? So that's something I need to get people to see, that it's not really, oh, the lotion and potion you're rubbing on your skin. That's not what the price is. For all you know, that can be the pour, what they poured into that jar may be 20 cents in commercial value. But what of the research and development? The 5 years of research and development, who's going to pay that cost? Is that commodity? So you see what I'm saying? In the world of business, it's not necessarily, oh, what I poured into this jar is just 20 cents, so I cannot. No, is the cost of operation, is the value production, is the shipping, is the overhead, is the labor, it's the photographers that took the pictures, it's the models that, they're modeling their hands, it's the celebrity influencer that you paid to post something on social media. Where is that money coming from? These products must carry that cost. Otherwise, you're not in a business. You're not in a profitable business. So that's a mindset I need people to realize that. So that's why they know that if they do all of that work and the packaging is not on point, they've just lost. So they would invest in packaging because they need that packaging to sell. If your packaging is wrong, you're not selling. So why pay an engineer if you're not going to invest in packaging? So that's why the packaging in skincare, in the skincare world, OMG. Look at the advertisements. The packaging is more expensive in most times than what is inside. It's at least maybe sometimes, I mean, I don't want to put a number, sometimes maybe 10 times more expensive.
That example that you gave, Toyin, makes me think about why a car company such as Rolls-Royce and Toyota charge differently, because of a lot of the customizing that happens in the parts and the labor and engineering that happens. The engineering that happens for a Range Rover or a Rolls-Royce is quite different from the Toyota, and the parts, so. And of course, the manufacturing has a lot to play with the historic value, so and then the consumer decides. So I like how this is, you made that example.
Yeah. And the next class, I talked about combining classes, right? The next class is talking about business optimization, business design. So I'm just covering the export side now. There's another side, which is totally another class, which I think instead of keeping it next week, I'm thinking of asking to move it into August, because I need you to think about everything we just talked about, so I don't lump it too much together. And that I'm sure there will be so many questions if you try to practicalize everything. So that's one of the thoughts that came to my mind. Like that next class is now going to also take a step back and saying, let's streamline your business. I've developed like a 6-step process, everything you need to do to actually build a business and actually build a business that can compete. right? So, so again, a lot of people are involved in activities of export and import, which is fine. But I'm trying to find the best way to explain all of this, the behind the scenes. You can see a Mercedes Benz and all of that, but I've worked for the world's largest company. I've worked for one of the world's largest manufacturers. For you to do everything that we all want to do, there's a science to it. That's and I'm trying to find the way. How do I get to explain to our people that you cannot compete without all this knowledge base? You can't, because the other side is operating by a depth of understanding that is not yet in the community. How do I, maybe that's my question to you, or like, how do we get more people to spend more time acquiring these skills?
I think when you're talking about that, one thing as far as spending more time, most people, in my opinion, don't understand just business concept. It just seems like we can do things as old as barter system. Like if someone just ships the product here to me in America, then I can sell it. And that's a direct to, that's like a, direct to consumer kind of transaction, not more big and practical with a lot of the policies and procedures that could go into effect, which would, actually, when doing things in business practice, there's so much more with regulation that people don't want to actually pay attention to or get involved with or even be educated about, because all these things would require like you said, a knowledge base and some kind of discipline to want to learn it, to be able to access these benefits. So if you're not able to have interest in wanting to learn and gain some type of intellectual understanding, I don't think you're going to be able to compete in the market. You're going to be able to compete from me to Toyin, right? You're going to be able to compete, friends and family, local, your social media space, but you're not going to capitalize on the different layers of the pyramid, like you were saying. You're only going to stick into the top. It's what I'm thinking. And so I think if people had more understanding, like business just in general, and understanding, okay, I'm willing to really apply myself, then they could probably start to go down to the layers of the pyramid and seek, better outcome. So I think people are just a little bit comfortable with what has been the norm. So yeah, because things are digital now, and right, so anything that's online has a global footprint, in the entire market. So and there's also regulation when you have to really go and scale to the larger demographic, like the commercial market. It's different from when you're only doing it to your friends and family. So it's just my input.
Oh, yes, you can bet I'm listening to you, because I listen a lot. Because the reason I listen is because I want to really understand how we can better equip and empower the community. Because if we empower the community, guess who wins? Africa.
Can I
If Mrs. Olasumbo wins, guess who wins? Guess who wins? The people she employs. So we have to get this right. Like livelihoods are
Right.
banking on the diaspora getting this right.
Oh, and sometimes there's also the thing with procedure. If I'm gonna see something and I want to do it, if I know the procedure, like 1, 2, 3, 4 through 8, if I know the 8 steps to do it, then I'm gonna think, okay, even if I'm lazy, right? Even if I'm someone that procrastinates, if I know that I can get through 4 steps from now until October, I'm happy. But if I can make all 8 steps by December, maybe that maybe
Oh
maybe I'll
my
be able to start
gosh.
business.
No.
These are some of the other things, some of the other ideas to make it like
Okay, maybe we start there. But I'm telling you, it's combination permutation. Just look at the two slides of the combination and permutation of the slide where I showed you this market segmentation and the slide where I showed you the opportunities. Imagine the combination permutation, that the things the ways you can mix that up. If you bring apparel Apparel can go to 1, 2, 3 people. Different, you see what I'm saying? So that's why, but that's a good feedback. Maybe we start with, okay, step by step, we help mature people step by step by step. But ultimately, you need to get to the strategic place, and strategy doesn't follow logic sometimes. I'm telling you, strategy could be intuition. It's deep understanding of what you're trying to accomplish and the stakeholders involved, and it incorporates nuances. So market, that's why they call it market intelligence. They use all those big phrases: market intelligence, market insights, customer segmentation. These are real stuff that literally is like data. That's what some people, their 100%, their full-time job is to unlock data that they then use to create products. Like, oh, guess what? Because COVID is here, people now need hand sanitizer. Guess what? They don't want perfumes anymore. Let's convert our perfume manufacturing station. We have alcohol. Let's start making hand sanitizers instead of perfumes.
You know, Toyin, another thing that came to mind, you know, with my current business program being business analytics and for my MBA. So when you're saying marketing and all the big words that people use, if people are familiar to the numbers, if they see, I believe, just on a chart and visually what it looks like with import, and they see the impact of, oh, guess what, this product is actually making
I
an
have those
event.
numbers. Maybe I need
Right.
to pop. I have the numbers of top things imported from the US.
Correct.
And in fact, I remember 5, 6 years ago, we actually did some analysis of cashew, the number of cashew US imports. If you know the number, that's a good one. That's a good one. Wow. Continue, please. I know I just wanted to say that. Please continue.
Oh, just with I think the benefactor with business analytics and seeing growth over a period of time, people can understand what is becoming more dominant and just be able to do more as far as even having interest. If I, for example, which I do, thank God, I own land now in Nigeria,
Yay.
which absolutely has to be, you know, happens to be cashew. Um, and this commodity sells, I mean, I can actually think of a profit gain. Um, and then find more interest in certain business. I think one of our speakers she just acquired a machine, right? So if there's a machine that can actually produce her product and enhance it, it's probably going to be better that she maybe get 2 machines, or you know, down the road she's going to probably, you know, expand and so forth like that. You know, and you know, with being able to take someone and train them and maybe put them in another country, you know, and stuff like that. You know, so expanding and so forth, and it's really good to see visual what's happening. You know.
Yes, this is really good. I remember you're almost taking me to some of the things we did 3, 4, 5 years ago, because before I ventured to build Nazaru and this landscape, those were the data that I dove into. That I'm a numbers person. My first degree is mathematics. Those were the numbers that even made me understand this made sense. Like, this is a space that is untapped. US only currently does about 2%, less than 2% of its total trade with sub-Saharan African countries. 2%. If you were to increase that by 0.01, what does that look like? Like, even 1%, that's like incredible, insane, right? But those 2% is more extractive oil, all of those things. And that, so this is good because it reminds me to go back and publish those things. In fact, there was a graph I published maybe 4 years ago where I compared 3 African countries and what they were exporting: Nigeria, Kenya. I took their population size and what they were exporting, non-oil exports. And it turns out that Kenya was outperforming Nigeria on non-oil exports by millions. Kenya is actually outpacing Nigeria in non-oil exports because Nigerian oil is what they use for their GDP revenue. They've not really developed non-oil exports. Whereas Kenya, because they don't have the oil, They've spent time, their life, their government depends on revenue from non-oil, textile. So there's a lot of investment there, and they're exporting millions of dollars in that space. And I put that out there, and people are like, oh my gosh, Nigeria is underproducing non-oil export. This is a growth space. So this conversation is, sometimes I just have to remember that maybe all the things we did at the very beginning, we need to reintroduce it, because some never saw it. So this is something we have to constantly do, because the numbers show that this is the direction Africa needs to move in. Like, all of the outcomes of this training is based on data research. Like, if I tell you that these 3 segments is the opportunity, like when I showed the skincare apparel, it's because of research. Like, you're going to make more money in apparel. Apparel is low. It requires one of the low investment, low technical competency to sew. I mean, to take apparel and sew, versus if you were doing you were manufacturing a car. Less, like, apparel is like a low entry point for Africa. You have a lot of people, seamstress, that maybe they might not have even gone to school. You can actually transfer that knowledge very fast than engineering knowledge. You see what I'm saying? So the penetration opportunity for penetrating into apparel is like a no-brainer. Like, and the revenue, even in the US retail, apparel is it's the space where they used to cover the cost of other areas that are low revenue. More revenue, more markup happens in apparel than than grocery. So most stores, that's why you have more apparel stores, because the markup for apparel is high. I manage apparel merchandising strategy, for 4,000 stores. So apparel is a revenue earner for retailers. That's why you have all kinds of like, a lot of people are in apparel, because it's so easy. It's easier to build a business around apparel than to build an engineering company to make a dishwasher or a car. You know how many engineers that you need to do a car versus to sew and make outfits. It's low. Yeah. Sorry. Yes,
sorry,
please, Michelle. Yeah. No, this is good.
I've been distracted, but I've been listening. So in this case, what would you suggest as the 3 top products?
It's okay. You missed that. I actually shared it earlier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll replay. And then the other thing is with the shea butter.
Yes.
I don't know if it's going to make what it's supposed to make. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, because of the competitive analysis on the market. I feel like there's a lot of that now coming up. Do you think it will stand a chance? Because there's so many of those shea butter products on the shelf now. What will make mine stand out? Do I really want to go through that process? Versus if there's something else that's more going to do the work right away. I would really like to know, because with apparel, it's interesting you mentioned that. I did that some years ago in New York City. And I think right now is so much everywhere. Everybody's doing it. But my point is, I don't want to just jump into what everybody is doing based on the competitive analysis. If you can help explain in that sector. Yeah.
Okay. The next class that I'm going to teach is going to help with a lot in terms of business differentiation, business optimization. Here's what I'll say in general. The reason you go into business, right? You need to be clear on your why, right? Your why could be, I want to make money, period. Your why could be, I want to impact people. Just be clear on your why. It's neither right or wrong, but you need to know your why. Because when you start, your why will be challenged. If you go into business and say, I want to make money, for the first couple of years of building a business, you're just investing and trying to stabilize. Like, whatever business you're in. Like, that's the breaking news. That's the first thing we need to break to people. Like, building a business, like, if you're going into an established industry, you want to open a daycare, you want to open an insurance company, you want to be a tax person, you want to be a dentist, you want to be a lawyer, Those are established businesses. All you have to do is get a room or an office, do your registration, put your sign that you're a lawyer, tell people you're a lawyer, you start getting customers immediately. Like penetrating an established business is simple. You go to law school, you come out, you open your school, right? You want to be a doctor, there's a clear path to that. What we are talking about now is that there's no clear path. And that's why I always encourage people, approach it as a student of it. It's like going back to school because you don't know what you don't know. You know what you've invested in building your current career. The years you know, for you to be winning and leading your current career, you know what you've invested. It's the same thing. Building a business is a new, particularly if you've never done it before. You need to approach it in learning. Then it also becomes more complex if you're going into a space that is not mature. Trade with Africa, we're just beginning. We are just on this journey. I'm laying that foundation before I answer your question.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing I say about business, your brand could be your equity. If you go to any mainstream store now, you want to buy shampoo. How many shampoos are on the shelf? Right?
Yeah.
So saturation is not a reason not to go in. But if you want to go in, you have to understand how you're going to differentiate what you're doing. So differentiation is the key. If you're on your street, how many gas stations do you drive by? It doesn't mean somebody's not going to open a gas station tomorrow, but they differentiate themselves. That differentiation is what is key. The way people differentiate could be the brand, the trust in the brand. Yeah. This person calls their own this name. You call your own name a different name. But a brand is not a name. A brand is an identity. The identity you're going to build around your business requires investment. This is where people don't invest. Today, you think about Nazaru. People just say Nazaru. It's by design. The work we've done around the brand Nazaru or the brand Trade with Africa Summit or the brand ABCD. Yeah. It's by design. Those things, you don't stumble into success. So saturation is not a reason not to open your own shea butter business, but because it is saturated, you have to differentiate.
Stand out.
Yeah. So how do you differentiate is your strategy. Is the strategy you have to build. Do you differentiate by your fragrance, the types of products you bring that's not on the market, the way you market it, the niche you go after, the branding, the storyline? The beauty about human is that we all want something new and different. We're never satisfied.
Yeah.
Right. So even in today's world, I'm a beauty junkie. I'm always trying the next thing. That's why I even created my own skincare line. So you have to trust in the human dynamics of the desire to try new things. So is your thing new? Or you are replicating? And if you're replicating so replication is also a strategy, but those who replicate, the way they compete is the lower price. If you are the same, the way you're going to steal market share is you do it cheaper. That's your promise. Like, oh, you're buying this from so person. Guess what? We can make the exact same thing, but you won't spend. They're telling you to bring this amount. We'll
bring it down.
Bring it down. So that differentiation strategy is a combination of price, brand, marketing, product differentiation. You tweak your fragrance. It smells, looks, texture, different things. So my skincare, even though it's differentiated because my lipstick is shea butter. I mean, how many lipsticks do you find out there? It's a saturated market, but guess what? My own differentiation is made of shea butter. It's long lasting. It changes color to your pH, blah, blah, blah. I'm telling that story. And that's why it commands this price. You can't get, right? So that's what I mean, is that saturation is not a reason not to go in, but it is a reason to differentiate.
Thank you. That's very clear. That's very, very clear. Thank you very much.
Okay, good, good, good. Okay. Wow. Do you believe time? I still have some slides I need to run through. Any other question before I get back? You want to say something, Mr. Des?
I was gonna say comparative analysis based on who's in the market. So would you take a product that's already selling at its peak, and then use that as the way? Maybe that's gonna be your next class, probably. Probably, right?
I'm still, see, here's the thing. I developed these classes based on need. There's a lot of complete stuff that from the world I'm coming from. And I'm trying to bring it down in digestible way and graduate people slowly so I don't overwhelm. So you can see that even this Q&A is what is drawing. That's why I'm enjoying this Q&A, because you're making me talk about things that maybe I did not put in the slides, but I know and we operate in that space. You see what I'm saying? So these questions is going to help me. I'm going to build more slides into future classes. And the future classes is going to be based on the questions people are asking me. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So and that's why I want more people to because when we digest this, if I feel like, okay, the community knows this, then we can move to the next thing. We can say, okay, let's go into a class just purely on e-commerce. I've been doing e-commerce since 2007. Like pick, pack, ship, like the real sophisticated stuff. But I'm like, are people ready for this intense e-commerce? Just having a website is not e-commerce business. So it's not. So, and that's why when people say, oh, I have a website, I'm like, okay, okay, that's fine. E-commerce, the back end engine, the optimization, the operations, the warehousing, the pick, pack, ship projects, process, the labeling, the shipping, integration with shipping. That's when you can talk about that, then you're in the business of e-commerce.
Yeah, and that's why I brought up that because the generation now, the social media and everything is on there. There's so many products, there's so many services, and everybody is doing a 30-second video. You know, how do you stand out? Not because you cannot differentiate, but it just seems from a time where I would have done e-commerce also for a little while, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, is so different than now.
Yeah, and it's changing every day. But one thing I want to tell you is we've barely scratched the surface. So this is the time. Like, if you think people say, when is the time? When is the right time? Now, it could have been, when is the right time to plant a tree? Now, you can say, oh, I should have planted it 10 years ago, but there's another now.
Mm.
When is the right time to buy land? Now. When is the right time to build a website? Now. You could have done it 20 years ago, but you can't change that. Now, when you know, you start building it now. And guess what? We're just at the beginning of all of these things as Africans.
That reminds me, Toyin, about
Yes.
how products now, based on some of my research I've done, like undergraduate studies, how in the supply chain, products have RFIDs where they're all tracked,
Mm-hmm.
and in the manufacturing,
Mm-hmm.
it just allows for more quality control.
Yeah.
And QR code scanning now is
Yeah.
big, and anything that can happen digitally. So COVID has even shown us, like when you go to the restaurant, no menus are on the table.
Right.
So just as if you really wanted to have a product,
Right.
you could probably have samples in a storefront that has really no product there, and it
Right.
can be shipped to your home.
And that was the projects, like, because I worked in technology strategy with number one retailer, biggest company in the world. We were involved in secret projects, the future of technology. And so what you're reaching in research, we actually handled. We actually have secret stores where it's fitted with the future of retail, and we get to design it. That's why I'm saying, like, you all get to draw from me what you need, because I've seen the future. I help build it. In fact, today, if there's a video out there that is 6 years old where I was featured in a omni-channel strategy, merging the digital physical experience for the customer. We're talking about digital disruption 6 years ago. And the first pilot project that Walmart built 6-7 years ago, I was featured in an ad where I was talking about it. And that's, if you watch that video, you think it was shot yesterday, but no, it's 6 years old. And that's what we built and rolled out over the past 5 years. And it's why they were able to win in 2020. Because without that solution, they weren't ready for online. So part of that, so trust me when I say what I'm telling you now, this conversation we are all having, we are 5 years ahead of most people. I can tell you because I'm a futurist, I'm a trained strategist and a trained futurist. My company, we're just positioning, we're getting ready for the rain. Zoom, right? Trust me, this conversation, everybody here, 5 years from today, you would say Toyin was right. Because by 5 years from now, you're talking about saturation. Thousands more people are coming to do this thing. What am I saying? Thousands, millions in Africa.
Yep.
Under AFCFTA. So I'm telling
Yes.
you, we were early 6 years ago. The things I was part of, the things I was designing, blockchain. I did a proposal on blockchain 5 years ago. People are now talking about blockchain today because there's a curve, there's an innovation curve that is normalized. The first 5 years of any new technology, there's a lot, you only have early adopters. You are the early adopters of international trade with Africa. You're the early adopters. It hasn't gone mainstream yet. Trust me, 5 years from now, you will say Toyin was right. So saturation, what? There are 1 billion people on the continent yet to awaken to this thing. 1 billion people. By 2020, by 2050, Africa would have given birth to 1 more billion people, making it super. How many baby diapers and how many products, how many feeding bottles, how many plates, how many skincare products would you need over the next 20 years for the skins of the unborn?
You just got a great idea, actually.
That's a legitimate point.
You know, even with the shea butter, I was thinking maybe a baby line shea butter will make sense.
Yeah, you're just don't. I can hear you. Oh, you think, oh, you're just jumping in. I am telling you, there's no better time to jump in than now. You are early than most people. Everybody on this call, you are the early adopters. Do you know how many more thousands of people are struggling and they don't have this information I just shared with you today?
Yeah.
Okay. So get to work. The only thing you can do that will make me proud is to use this information. And 5 years from now to say, Toyin told us, right? That's the reward of all of this work.
Yeah.
Okay. So don't hesitate. I'm telling you, the opportunity is only growing. You've not even scratched it. We're so, we're where China was 20 years ago. Who can stop China now and say, China, enough, you've produced enough? No, they are ramping up. They're ramping up. And whoever gets this, whoever does this, you are securing wealth for future generation. International trade is about wealth distribution. With Mrs. Olasumbo now, if she can get 5-10 buyers, she will just be sleeping. Her sleep will be different.
Of course, so
And the villages, even they will be eating, their food would be different.
They'll be more than happy.
They will be chicken and so we are just this has to work. Like your country, don't even do it for yourself. Do it for the country you're going to be sourcing from. They need you to do this. So don't do it, even if you're hesitating for yourself. Your country, whichever country you're going to buy from, they need you to do this. So do it for them, even if you're not doing it for yourself. Because when you buy from them, you are giving them dollars. You know the exchange rate now? Who doesn't want to earn dollar in Africa? Please bring your American dollar. Okay, guys, let me quickly wrap up. Oh my God, look at the time. 3 hours is almost here. Let me quickly wrap up with the remaining slides and then we would enjoy more discussions. Yay. Okay. Thank you. This is good. Okay. We still have, oh, we're almost there. We're almost there. Let me quickly share the remaining slides. Okay. We talked about building the distribution channel, scaling up. The biggest challenges that Africa's exporters face are capacity to produce to global volumes, ability to meet global quality requirements for individual product category, value chain management. Value chain is everything that it takes to bring those products to the marketplace, from challenges in transportation to securing documentation for exports, to employing the right people, to government requirements, to NAFDAC number, that managing all of that. There's a lot of hurdles for them to even bring their products to the shipping. There's so the reason I'm sharing this is so that you appreciate everything that Mrs. Olasumbo and people like her are doing on ground. You need to put a strong value on the work they are doing to bring those products to the marketplace. Everybody has a role to play. They have a role to play. And then when you get those products here, your own role, distribution, branding, marketing, pushing it, we all have a role to play. Nobody's sitting around, thinking, oh, it's easy. No, all hands on deck. Because this stuff, if we get it right, we can then push more volume into the market. Also thinking about warehouse and storage, particularly when it starts you going into volume. If it's still a small package here and there, you can put it in your house, but only ship when you know where you're going to store it. Some products require temperature control, like particularly in skincare world, you can only put certain things in temperature controlled spaces because the temperature going up and down would affect the veracity, the effectiveness or the potency of what is inside those products. These are things, because I work in that space, you have to think about that. But if you're bringing it in raw form, maybe not. But once you've mixed certain products, it may be required. Like some of my skincare, we actually had to do shelf life testing in labs where it was aged for 2 years, meaning before we could put on the package that, there's this symbol of when you open it, for 24 months is going to be effective. After that, so we actually did some lab testing where there are some machines where you put that product in and then it ages it, and it looks at if it is 2 years old, is it separating, because oil and the emulsion, like the oil and water, they don't mix. But if you've done some formulation, you want to age it to say, does it discolor? Like, does discoloration happen over 6 months of opening this packaging? What does the color look like? So these are scientific tests that you can pay a lab to do for you, to look at the shelf life and the stability of that product on the shelf. Those are, again, more sophisticated things that happen in retail space. Some retailers require you to have done that, because if they put it on the shelf and the color starts separating after 6 months, big problem, right? Transportation logistics, think about this. Consider transportation requirements. Factory, if you're a manufacturer, from a factory to your warehouse, from the warehouse to the shipping port, there might be time delay in terms of what happens in volume. Now, who pays for shipping, air or ocean? Those are things that can be negotiated based on the contract structure. Is it freight on board? All of those things, right? Mr. Lasumbo knows what I'm talking about. When it then arrives here, when you pick it up from the airport to your warehouse, again, if it's volume, what's the shipping? And then from the warehouse to ship it to the customer. That's it. A lot of times people don't break this, that shipping happens and logistics and transportation happens. There are multiple things happening to get a product from a factory to the US. You have to factor each of the costs, each step by step by step. It happens. Payments, trade financing. Trust is the most important currency of international trade. In fact, transactions happen in conversations before money changes hands. You get a buying commitment before they now issue the PO. and then before you start transacting and all of that. I need people to really understand this thing. In regular trade in your local market, you take your money to the market, you buy, you sell, you're gone. In international trade, you have to manage that relationship. The relationship management is what actually will determine if you will ever make money or not. People will verbally make a commitment and say, oh, I'm ready to buy, or I'm ready to sell. And then the PO would only come when they know that they can commit it to you, that you've demonstrated. And that's why all of these things like website, your pricing model, all of those things need to be in play before you even talk to a buyer. Because one moment the buyer looks at you, you don't manage that relationship well, you've lost that opportunity. Financial institution can step in to finance your transaction. A lot of time, the buyer wants to see, do you have the capacity or the financing relationship to pull this off? A lot of times, the deals are done in the future. 2022, they're already buying what will be supplied in 2022 because it takes about 6, 7, 8, 9 months to actually produce to the demand for next year. You can't react in volume. You can't react immediately. So those are things you need to start thinking about. Always use a PO document. A lot of times I want to also encourage my membership. If you want to buy something from Africa, use instruments like request for quotation, request for information. Start using those type of language to say, I want to buy this. These are my criteria. It will really help those people on the continent to structure their own program to meet your demands. So using those type of instruments, that's really the future, not just verbal. Again, purchase order, invoice documents. There are a lot of that's another, maybe that will be a future class in terms of all the documents and paperwork required to support all of these things. But the relationship is the first part before you go into documentation. Again, relationship before documentation, because the documents will reflect the conversations. Before you write a PO, you've already agreed to terms verbally. And then the purchase order is just the legal representation of those conversations. Payment terms is something you have to master as well. It might be a full class in the future as well. Invoices, letter of credit. Again, for me, my commitment is asking, let me stop here and then before we go further, I want you to see my face very well. Remember, I've said people engage in the activities of import export, but the business of it is why I'm talking about all this. These are the instruments, the POs, the invoice, the letter of credit, all of these things. Like when you start scaling up, when the demand is higher, when the risks are higher, these are legal structures that we now need. I need people to start embracing versus all of the things we do before. Buyers will talk and use this language. Okay. So I just wanted you to see my face because this is so, so, so important. We're doing a lot of activities, but they are not backed legally. And then is it finally? Yeah, finally. Helpful links, more information, deeper dive. Again, this is just a deep dive of the breadth and depth of things you need to know and be aware of as you're building your export business. And then based on demand from the community, there are some deeper dives we'll be offering our members in the future, because again, this is a long journey. It's been an honor delivering this. We said 3 hours. This is 3 hours. We have 5 minutes to go for more Q&A. There are more classes definitely designed, but I hope this has been helpful. Really, really an honor to help bring this. And I see more questions or comments. So now I'm done. I want to hear more. And I want to get feedback. What's the format like? What do you think? What would you have liked to see? But again, this is not the end. We're just ushering people hopefully in the right direction. So that's it from me.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. The masterclass, workshop, stroke, seminar, stroke, everything is quite insightful and very loaded. You know, I was just absorbing everything. So, but I'm quite, you mentioned that,
Do you want to show your video?
Let me see.
Okay.
I'm relaxing, so I'm just absorbing everything. You mentioned something that Nazaru does, working with, when we're talking about working with third-party sales agents, third-party sales agents,
Yes, yes.
because looking at my own business now, we at the packaging, the labeling, before we could get all that, it will take up to like 2, 3, or even 4 months down the line. But the one we are ready for now is the bulk,
Mm.
is the bulk supply. So, and we are ready for that now. Now that the factory is ready, we are already in talks with EcoBank and Nice Out too. All of them too. They are going to be at the opening ceremony. So, how do we work together to get these buyers now? Because the women are like,
Yeah.
when are we starting? When are we starting?
Okay.
We are
So
ready
if
to.
if you
We're ahead. So
you know
we
from
are
the
ready
beginning,
for that. The bulk one.
yeah, from the
Mhm.
beginning, the conversation I've been waiting for the signal from you, because the thing is, you don't want to make any promise when you're not ready. And we have to be
Yes,
we have to be
yes.
gentle. We have to be gentle. So that's why, for the last couple of, I've been helping you, answering your questions, your label. I know what people are looking for, but I also want to get a signal from you, because you also told me you were working on your factory, you're trying to get things ready. I know you're busy and all of that. So you get to signal to me that I'm ready. When you signal to me I'm ready, we want to put your pitch, just like your recording pitch, and then
Okay,
your capacity. Okay, we want to know
okay,
your capacity, and then
okay,
the grade level and all of those things. We put that together, and those are the things we are going to put into the market and put out there to generate demand.
okay, okay, okay. So
Capacity
we are going to this
capacity is important. People want to know
capacity. Yes.
what is the
No
capacity you can produce per
capacity
month.
produce per month.
Pricing,
Okay.
you also want to start looking at comparative pricing. You understand? You
Very
want to
good.
start doing that, but capacity is sometimes even more important than pricing. Here's why. Um, a lot of the buyers want consistency in capacity over time.
Okay.
They are willing to
Over
pay
time.
more if they know this person will deliver results over time, because a lot of them are not one-time buyers. They are looking to create new sources of supply
Long term
that they can
supply.
rely on. They're looking to build relations. So this is not just what you can sell them today. They are more looking at you, your setup, your factory, your story, because if they say yes to you, the yes means the next 2, 3, 4 years.
That's what we want. In fact, we're even looking at a kind of a relationship that we can even sign an MOU. Say, okay, we want you to be supplying us maybe 5 tons a month or 10 tons a month. Then we know that, okay, we are facing this buyer 10 tons a
That's
month.
it.
Okay,
That's
let's
it.
roll.
That's it.
That's what we want.
That's how it's framed. But it's you. It's your setup that you have to be ready to send that message. Because if you
Okay,
are not
okay.
ready, we cannot put it out there. You see what I'm
Okay,
saying?
so how do we start with that now? Or we can
Yeah.
discuss that one privately.
Yeah. Yeah. So this you've given me you've told me yes. So this is something we can work on, because there are other things we do privately, like the other woman that our other clients, the cosmetics, we like, since after the event, I've done 2 meetings for her. I've introduced her to several people. So I've been working with her because she was ready. So that's it.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. This is good that you're telling me this, right? Because
Yes.
she has actually, we've set up, because she's already in that process. So I can just share this briefly, right? We set up meetings with her with Prosper Africa to connect her to those resources,
Okay.
government
I
resources.
wanted to I also wanted to tell you about the Prosper Africa. I've
Yes.
mailed them. So they sent me some information
Yeah.
that with the AGOA stuff like that. So I filled they said the first step is to fill one form like that. So I
Yep.
filled the form. And then I wanted to ask you, the man that is in charge of the Prosper Africa, he was at the Trade with
Yep.
Africa
Yep.
stuff and
Yep.
everything.
We have
So and you said you were
yeah.
going to bring him in August. So I wanted to even ask that, okay, are you still bringing the man in August? This is the stage I am with them.
Yes.
So if the man can even help to speed up the
Yeah.
relationship.
So those are the things. So these are like, this is the work we do. Like, we don't make it public, right? But we're having a member conversation, is that what I hold people's hand one on one, and I set up. These are the things we do that nobody sees it publicly, right? If you didn't bring this up,
Okay.
so when people are mature enough to that level and they are ready, there are so many other things we can bring to empower them. Okay, so and it is a very complex landscape. So we help them navigate it. So for example, let me play this out. You would actually make more progress if we made introductions to you to the US side, because they will now connect you to the Nigerian hub. There's a trade hub, US trade hub in Nigeria that is supposed to be helping you. But if you go to them now, they might not. But if headquarters in US send an email to them with our name and you, they will jump. Those are the things.
Please do.
You see what I'm saying?
For us. So yes.
So we've set up. So I've already done that, and then this past week, I actually also set up another with our clients. I set up Exim Bank, US Exim Bank. I also made some introductions for her, because if she wants to build a capacity, right, she needs financing, and there's US government guaranteed loan that she can benefit. So those are the things. So I know some people watching this will be like, I didn't know Toyin did that. That's okay. When people graduate, I'm always watching for the step by step. A lot of people will be, I want this. I'm like, when I ask some question, I'm like, you're not ready. So I cannot offer you the heavy, because the questions Prosper Africa will ask me. If you see what I'm saying? We are saying 17 government agency. By the time we even set up the appointment, they were like, where are you registered? How many years have you been in registry? What is you first answer all those questions. And if you can't meet that
all those questions and criteria, of course.
So that's why,
of course,
it's always you that sends me a signal. And when we do our own preliminary due diligence, we can now say, okay, within our portfolio and our breadth of network, who can we introduce you to that will unlock incredible value for you, that will set you apart? Because all we have to even request from Prosper Africa is, I want to hand that over to the West Africa USAID Trade Hub. They are right there in Lagos. They need to know you, and they need to know that the US office, you're already on the same platform, Nazaru. And that email coming from US, you will see your name will change.
Of course, so please.
Yeah, so that's why I said, but remember, your factory opening, right? Pictures,
yes,
video,
pictures,
videos, high quality. Because that is something I can use, put it on our website, and then send it to them. Because before I make those introductions, I always send a brief deck of, I want to request a meeting between you to introduce you to my client. This is who she is. Read this, watch this. So if you have any questions, what do we need to prepare for this meeting? What questions?
Exactly.
So when I introduce them, then we set up a meeting, and then they tell you what they can do for you as the US government, and then we take it from there.
Okay. So let's start with that. Okay, so the first step is wait for the videos and the pictures
your
of
website,
the opening.
Because again,
my website. Okay,
they will check at this level. When you start operating at that level, you have to give them information. You have to abundance of information that shows the seriousness and the and you have it, but you just have to package it. This is packaging.
Yes.
It's just like I say, true. Packaging in product. This is packaging of your brand and your story.
Okay. So I'll get back to you since the opening is on 20, by end of the month. By the end of the month,
yeah.
by God's grace,
and that's this what you just talked about. This is what I opened Nazaru for years ago, but only for me to realize that for people to get to this stage, we have to help guide and coach and build and scale them up. That this is the so what now we operate 4 pillars. Trade facilitation is what we are describing now. Facilitating trade is the day by day of holding people's hand and making connections and doing deals. Those things are private. You won't see it on social media. I don't need to tell. That's why a lot of times when I just show on Clubhouse, people are like, don't. I'm like, I'm just inspecting who is ready, who is talking like they are ready here. Because that work is the real work. But that's something we are
That's true.
maturing. That's really the real work. But for us to even get people to that level,
It's tough work.
you have to be patient. You can see me
Right.
now. I've learned. I'm drinking I'm patient. I'm learning to be patient now. It takes. That's why I said we are still 5 years ahead of most people.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank
No
you.
problem.
Let me
No.
give opportunity to other members to even ask their question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So, but you see what I'm saying? Like, that's why I've been following. How many months now? I've been step by step. You send your packaging. You send your document. I give you feedback. And the reality is that not everybody's like you. Not everybody's coachable. So you are demonstrating incredible, in a way, the heart and humility with which you're even approaching us allows us to help you, support you through that entire process. A lot of people and don't even have that.
Really?
Oh,
When you don't know what you don't know now. You don't
ah,
know something and you want to go. Oh, tunu rere nile. Wo. O ti ba niyen. Hey. You don't know something, then you humble yourself now. I'm in my classroom, I beg. I'm in my classroom. You don't know what you don't know. If you don't know it, you don't know it. Then you put yourself down and learn.
hmm.
You see all the way you were saying some things, I was just recording. I was absorbing everything, absorbing. Chai, you learn every day. What's your, eh? Hello, be me. Thank you
Well,
so
no,
much.
I applaud you because it's even very, I'm humbled by that. I'm really humbled, really. I don't take it for granted because I'm saying not everybody's there yet. And I have to thank you for showing up as well. So many people needed to show up. We'll see. We'll give
Hey,
them the recording. Okay, who else? We are now 3 hours, guys. 3 hours. Who else has questions
hey,
before we wrap up?
hooray,
Thank you so much.
hooray.
Oh my gosh. But I need your permission to move. The next class is also another intense class. Business development. I want us, can we
Okay.
move it to August? I want you to digest this.
Yes, let's digest this one. Let's
Let's get the
digest this one.
video
Oh,
out. If you
hey,
need to watch a replay,
yes.
I need to put some resources and send some resources, links you can check, things you can read more about. So that's my own assignment. Let me write it down to send some accompanying links, documents, things to do deeper dive. And then if you have more questions, so we're going to package the video, deeper dive, resources, because there's a lot. There's a lot. And then, so with your permission, the second, that's why I said it's a combined class, because this is okay, export. The next one is even more interesting in terms of business streamlining, you know. So I'm looking forward to that. Anything else? If not, this is it. There's Miss Rachel. Tell me, we're wrapping up now. 3 hours. It went so fast.
I've seen enough for today. I think
No, too much.
yeah.
Too much. What does it feel like?
Well, it feels good to be able to see, the madam that we saw, that she's there and looking for business, and also understanding that she has the eager that we have here. It's like we're trying so hard to reach each other, but it has to go through a process,
Hmm.
in a process that's sustainable, not one just that we can just do for today, one that we can do for 30 years now.
Hmm.
And I think that's the benefactor of coming to today's class. It's not how to understand doing business today; it's to understand how to do business generations after us, so
Wow.
that it can be very much more an effect and not just a transaction.
Right. And
Yeah,
we are competing with people that do have that generational knowledge base.
right. They all seem to think on that term, right? They think of, I mean, based on the summit, they
Hmm.
were talking about 7-year, trajectories for business and so forth, in the life cycle. So I learned a lot from the summit and understanding how that works here. Of course, if there's going to be a commodity that we're selling, that commodity may have a life shelf or a time span of peak demand.
Hmm.
And if that happens to be, what do you go to? What is the next place to shift in market? So
Hmm.
these are good things that kind of make me get inquisitive of to think about long terms.
And that's I need, it's almost like the reason these classes are important is I need us to be on the same page. That's the first thing. It's like trying to get everyone to be on the same page. Like we are all moving in this direction. This is what it takes. Are you ready to go? That's it's been like that for me from hosting summits, bringing people together. We need to move in one, with one heart. We need to know that this is what we all want. This is what we desire. This is what it takes to build a global brand and streamlining our business, not just to be in the activity of import export, but to be building an import export business. The other day, earlier this week, somebody reached out and called, and she explained what she was doing. I was like, okay, I hear you, I hear you. And then I asked her a question. Everything you're doing, have you ever heard of export trading company? She was like, what? I've never. I'm like, yeah, go and research it. You're doing the activity of an export trading company, but you don't know your one, so you cannot command the liquidity and investments of that structure. She was like, oh my goodness. I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's why I said coaching meant you have to subject yourself. You don't know what you don't know. She's in the activity of all of these things, but she's not in the structure of an export trading company. But she's behaving like one, but she doesn't know it exists. So she cannot go into the international market and say, I am an export trading company, and get people to understand what she's doing. So anyway, that's what I've seen. We'll continue sharing, we'll continue teaching. This video will be out, more resources will be pulled out, but please send me questions. Um, the reason you are the reason these classes happen. When I see a need in the community, we structure it, we put it together. There's a lot of knowledge base. Not even myself. There's a lot of people that we could be bringing, but I don't want to bring them if there's no demand, right? And that's why we use the summit to structure, listening to the experts. This is what it takes, and then bringing practical, and then the coaching. The reason the coaching is also is important is I can explain. You can see what the potential is. I can explain all these things. But when you start trying it, you still have questions. At least you now know where you can go to, and we can help you unlock daily. And that's what we've been doing, like with Mrs. Olasumbo, okay, work on this. She comes back, work on that. She comes, and you can see the progress. You can see the progress. And that is the joy for me. For me, is that joy of that progress. And I want to thank you all. And Mr. Olasumbo, you inspire me, because
Yes,
I
so
see the
thank
progress you
you.
are making. I see it.
Thank you.
Congratulations
Thank you
again,
so
and
much.
congratulations to everybody.
Thank
So
you.
progress, and please tell other people. I don't know how to tell other people anymore.
You.
I use different methods to tell people, but we will keep. We are still, it's the early adopters. Everybody out there still think, you know, that's it. But we'll keep maybe clips, we'll share clips here and there, with your permission, like clips here and there, just so, because I do a lot of things behind the scene, and because people don't see it, they don't know it's happening. Like the world is moving on. Things are happening. Just because you're not part of that community doesn't mean it's not happening. So we'll see.
Oh, and another thing, Toyin, thank you for making these, introductions to what's happening with AFCTFA. I always get that mixed up. But
After.
right after, exactly. But I think you were telling on Instagram that it's on implementation phase right now, and so there's, I mean, with COVID and all the kind of crazy stuff going on around in the world, most people are not listening to that type of news.
Well, but we've been saying it for years now. That's also something I have to learn. 2019, the team that was, when it was in the ratification phase, we were like, oh, AFCFTA. People were like, what's she talking about? And then the ambassador in charge of putting it together, he came, gave us a keynote. I'm like, everybody, can't you see what's going on? They're like, why do I care? Okay. Now we've moved from that phase. Now it's implementation. January 1 of this year, I was called by Al Jazeera. I was on Al Jazeera. They were asking me what it is about. We were like, yes, AFCFTA is live. Trading has started. People are still like, what is AFCFTA? right? So I'm like, so I now recognize that some of us have to be futurists. We are living in the future and we're helping to create the future, but also realizing that people will awake to that at their own pace. I think that's where I am learning patience, is that all of the things we're putting out there, it might still take some people 2 years to even for it to click. So it may click for some, it may not. And only God determines when that veil gets removed for people. All we can do is to create content and put it out there. And the people that are ready to learn, it might be today, it might be tomorrow, it might be next year. In fact, there are still some sermons of T.G. Jakes from 5-6 years ago. I'm just now seeing and watching them. So I believe 5 years from now, some of the things we are doing today, some people, it might take them 4-5 years. So hopefully that serves as encouragement to everybody as well in your own field, as you're trying to raise adoption for your work, for your product. Don't give up. Just realize that there are some things within your control. There are some things that are not, but just continue to do what you believe in. You are moving in the right direction, move in the direction of your conviction. That's why I really so much support Mr. Lasumbo in terms of what she's doing. People need to respect that. The people at the grassroots, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hard work. And if all we can do is make connections and open new doors for them, it's transformative for all concerned, and obviously it's a transaction. So definitely we do it as a service as well. So it's a win-win. But this is the direction. This is it. Thank you again, and God bless. Have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. This is 3 hours, 17 minutes
Okay.
later. You've been patient without a
So
break.
thank
God
you.
bless you. See you around and
Thank
look out for
you.
more
Thank
information
you.
with us.